0-2. This ball smacked to right field. It is over the wall. Josh Pearson blasts off. And the Tigers are putting it to the Gators.
This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com.
Toon looking the other way. End zone! Touchdown! Keyshawn Carter.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Third down throw. Might not need the kicker. Touchdown! Phillip Brooks.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Here's Gabriel. Steps up in the pocket, looking for the first down, has running room and more. Gabriel down the sideline, burst of speed at the 20, cuts it back. Dylan Gabriel, touchdown!
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Hall to the outside. Touchdown. Cody Epps.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Well, at some point, we will have all three of us on the set today. Craig, on Friday, if you'll recall, if you were watching the show, somebody swerved out in front of him to avoid the person on the road. He hit his car into a curb, flat tire, popped the tire, and after doing Bearcast earlier today, is over at one of the tire places here in Waco to get a couple of tires put on, so he'll be here a little bit later today. Paul Catalina is back from a month of 16 days of a vacation. 16 days of a vacation, and, welcome back.
Well, I'm glad to... I'm happy to see you.
You're a liar.
I'm happy to see you, Smokey.
No, you're not.
I didn't miss. I told this everybody. I didn't miss everybody in this room, but I'm happy to see you because it was great. I'm only going to have one wedding, and so I'm super happy to be back. We had a great time. I learned something really crazy in Hawaii. Here's the Siri in Hawaii can say every road and every town name perfectly.
Yep.
But Siri in Texas gets really confused.
Well, because the roads, the way they're built. It's the way they are built.
So if you're driving to Seguin, Texas, and ask Siri where you're going, she'll say you're going to Seguin. But if I'm going to Kapa'ole Road,
she'll get
she
it right.
Nails it.
Yeah. Well, is she like a native from Hawaii?
Might be. I was surprised.
A lot of things to get to, including a couple of commitments that have occurred. We'll get to that. Also, the latest letters from San Diego State and the Mountain West Conference. We'll have that. But just a moment ago, 365 Sports reported that Baylor gets a commitment from a linebacker, Keelan Reed from Summit High School in Mansfield. He made the commitment, and a 4-star commitment. Grayson, of course, all over recruiting. Reed told Grayson his biggest reason for committing to Baylor was the person over player mantra, or the culture that Dave Aranda and the staff have tried to, I guess you could say, create. And at times, we've heard that from a lot of those who have committed to play at Baylor. Also, a little bit ago, Texas Tech got themselves an edge rusher in Eddie Smith, committed to Texas Tech. 6'6" defensive end over Oklahoma State, Houston, and TCU. Reed, by the way, committed to Baylor over what I'm being told was Oklahoma State and also Utah. So a couple of notes. And there were other commitments, and of course there will be. We will have Chad Simmons today from On3.com at 3:40. We had yesterday Cole Patterson from Rivals on commitments and all that. We'll do that again today with a different set of eyes in Chad Simmons at 3:40. But in about 10 minutes, Houston Athletic Director Chris Pezman. Tomorrow, I just booked Tom Homo, who is the AD at Brigham Young. He'll join us in the 5 o'clock hour. Mac Rhodes, normally today, will join us tomorrow at his regular time, but tomorrow at 4:20. Now, San Diego State, we went over this yesterday, the opening letter they sent to the Mountain West Conference, in the Mountain West Conference, and their response. This is from This is from San Diego State in responding to the Mountain West Conference of saying, okay, we now understand your intent that you'll be leaving the conference. And this still becomes kind of a legal issue. But part of this is, well, wait, we'd like to thank you for your time and professionalism. The letter we wrote on June 13th was not the official notice of resignation from the conference pursuant to the bylaws. As plainly set forth in that letter, its purpose was twofold: to request a 1-month extension of time under which we could formally provide our notice of resignation, and then also ask for the opportunity to discuss the exit fee because of money, of course, San Diego State has created in their runs in the NCAA men's basketball tournament. And then the conference responded, Garrett, is that right, with this? On behalf of the Board of Directors of the Mountain West Conference, I'd like to thank you for your letter dated June 15th. We write to inform you the conference will not approve any waiver of any requirement under the bylaws of the Mountain West Conference for the avoidance of doubt and notwithstanding any decision made in a future meeting of the board. The conference expects all members to abide by the terms of the bylaws, including applicable notice deadlines. Also note that this letter is not intended to express agreement with any interpretation expressed in the second notice letter, including those concerning whether your letter, dated June 13th, constitutes notice of resignation. Under the bylaws, the conference continues to reserve all rights.
So if I'm San Diego State, and I'm sure they've already done this, I'm on the phone with George Kliavkoff going, hey, can we
But can you speed up what may not have any kind of a speed? And there are thoughts that maybe even something could happen this week, but we've been hearing that now for months and months and months. And by God, everyone will celebrate if it happens to be this week or anytime soon.
Yeah, and look, San Diego State, they're leaving, so that's going to happen. They're probably going to the Pac-12. I heard your interview with Jason Scheer last week when I was on the plane the other day. And look, they're full tilt ahead. They want to be in the Pac-12. That's what their goal is. They're full tilt ahead about not being in the Mountain West anymore. And the Mountain West is right to say, look, we're not going to give you an extension because we would like all that money. And then these things do get negotiated out over time, but to do it, this may wind up being just a formality and they'll come to some number that's in the middle of the two. But San Diego State was trying to attempt to extend a deadline, which they don't know when they'll be asked to be in the Pac-12, which to me, it kind of just, the confusing part is Pac-12, if you want them, whether they're going to be the 11th team or the new 10th team or the 12th, the new 10th team or whatever it's going to be, just bring them in. At this point, I don't know. But this Pac-12 negotiation has gotten so muddled and complicated.
You would think that if the Pac-12, and this could be wrong for the Pac-12 apologists that get on here in our chat room and they question when we report, we just showed you the letters. But if the Pac-12 is going to survive, and they have said that they are, and the presidents have made that comment, if that's the case, then offer San Diego State. My God, they're on a life raft out there now. They've put themselves, they fell overboard because they believe that they're going to be added to the Pac-12. Then why would you not extend them an official invitation, because they're about to be in a very sticky situation legally because of the letters and because of June 30th is on Friday.
Yeah, we've used this a lot, but they just went to the girl. They said they were going to ask the prom and said, hey, I just broke up with my girlfriend. Can you go? And she's like, well, I got to ask my parents first. And they're like, have they said yes yet? Well, I don't know. And so it's weird that they're still sitting out there and doing this. And this is a big move. It's one they had to do, I guess. And I think everybody's just working the legal pathways here. But it does kind of reflect on how chaotic this Pac-12 thing continues to be.
Well, it is. It's got to be in some cases where maybe at some point, bam, wow, that makes sense. Or it's just kicking the can down the road. And really, honestly, I don't even care about that much anymore. But I do now. All of a sudden, San Diego, am I right? San Diego State sends a letter to the Mountain West Conference because they feel like they're going to be a part of the Pac-12. But because the Pac-12 has not yet been able to decide or show the numbers on their TV deal, they're not able to get the invitation. So they're asking the Mountain West Conference for a little extra time here. We're going to leave. That's basically, if the people can say legally, yes, they're going to leave. That's why they're asking for the extra time. if you're the Pac-12, why don't you extend the offer? What am I missing here?
Wouldn't you?
I don't understand. If it's going to be a healthy deal, then offer the damn team to come join your conference. They can turn in the letter. They've already turned in the letter, and then they don't have to worry about it, and they pay $17 million or whatever they decide it's going to be.
Wouldn't they be buoyed by a nice little boost in good news?
Yeah, to me, because offering San Diego State is a sign that you will be there in existence. Now, you don't have to offer them to still be in existence, but I don't. Gary Wilson, announcing a deal gives impression of a big number per team. Then they add teams with, no one can convince me, not George Kliavkoff or anybody else, anybody who covers or is a part of the Pac-12. You have told San Diego State, you have flirted with them, just like you also, remember, went on a date with SMU. The SMU has not told anything to the American Conference that I know of. But the San Diego State administration just sent a letter to the Mountain West Conference. We want to leave. We're going to leave. We just need a little more time. If you're the Pac-12, offer them the invitation. And then no matter who you are, based on the numbers that Kliavkoff comes up with, whatever the deal is, San Diego State will still be financially better off, whatever the number might be.
Yeah, I think this could be an everybody wins scenario, but
conundrum. They're putting the squeeze on the Aztecs. Who's they? Are you talking the conference or the Pac-12?
The Pac-12.
Why would the Pac-12 put the squeeze on an incoming member that they've shown interest in and they've been basically all but dating? Why? Why? That's not the way to start a relationship, is it? I don't think so. I don't think so. I just don't understand it. If you are going to be healthy and you are going to release numbers that everybody's going to be happy with, and you have told San Diego State it all but said, we want to add you, whether Colorado or anyone else leaves or not, invite them. And I know that legally, maybe, I don't know, somebody try to help explain that to me. I did go to junior college. So help me out with that.
I think there's people who have gone to Harvard and Oxford and
can't figure it out.
Berkeley and Stanford and have degrees that if you ask them to explain it to you, they'd be like, why don't I go and try to explain how the atom splits? That might be a little easier than what's going on right now.
Keilani, to think, and we have Chris Pezman here at any moment with Houston, we're going to be calling him. To think they didn't talk to each other on the phone before sending these letters is highly naive. The communication is to save face no matter what happens with San Diego State in the next few months.
Yeah, I think that these are legal formalities. You have to have everything in writing because the last thing that anybody would need is, look, we talked on the phone and you said, cool, bro. And then when we left, you didn't honor what you said on the phone because you need to have all that stuff in writing. So, yeah, I'm sure they are. But, again, I don't know what I expected when I heard the news that San Diego State was going, had sent that letter or had told them that they were going to go. I was like, okay, cool. Then we're going to find something out here in the next couple days that would stand to reason. And it's just been a little longer than normally would think because just going back on history, when you hear that, for example, Oklahoma and Texas are joining the SEC, well, that was not their planned exit timeline. Within 24 to 36 hours, they were like, yeah, we are. Wasn't what we wanted to do, wanted to come out this way, but yes, we are. And then when the Big 12, said that they were going to add schools, and then you found out those schools had applied to leave their conference within a day or so, you heard, this is what we're doing. And here, poor San Diego State, and I say that, they're just kind of sitting out here going, well, we're going to leave. We think we know where we're going, but we need that person to open the door.
All right, but if you are the Mountain West Conference, and we have discussed this even last week, if you're the Mountain West Conference and somebody says what they said in the letter, you can get into the legal intending and or actually saying we're officially leaving. If you're the Mountain West Conference, would you want to give them the extra time? No. Would you want to give them extra time?
No.
Would you want to give them a financial break? Now, legally, they may settle a certain number just like everyone else has, but I I don't quite get that. We got to get a hold of Chris Pezman here and get him on the show, and might even be able to, without getting too much into other people's business, get a feel for what he has to say about that. Also today, I mentioned Chad Simmons, On3 Director of Recruiting. Will Backus wrote a story today on CBSSports.com. You remember how to do that? CBSSports.com about the National Letter of Intent, not NIL, but NLI, and some of the rules changes, and most of them appear to be very pro-student athlete, and we'll go over that with Will today at 4. Craig's got off the radar, and then today, Sam Bradshaw, and you've seen and you've heard, and Sam's been on with us many times, a lot of times the week of games to break down the upcoming opponent, but Sam Bradshaw has graphics and more on the television values, the opportunities, from everything you could imagine, the angles of all the conferences in America, and of course, especially the Big 12. And speaking of the Big 12, on Saturday, official, midnight on Friday, Houston, Cincinnati, UCF, and Brigham Young will be official members of the Big 12, and Chris Pezman, the AD at Houston, joins us. The Director of Athletics joins us on 365 Sports. We've been just, this is going to happen. It's going to happen. How much excitement, Chris, is there for you and the campus, the university, and the alums of Houston coming up this Saturday?
Ecstatic. It's hard to put, to quantify how everybody feels. As you guys have heard me say before, there's some scars here, from what happened in the past, but the response from everybody has been so overwhelming. We've sold 6,500 new season tickets, and we still have almost 8-9 weeks to go till we play football. Mm-hmm. We're at 92% renewed on basketball season tickets, and we're in the middle of June, and we've got till the 30th when we close out, and we went up 50% across the board on pricing, and we're still waitlisted. It's just, I use those as examples to kind of quantify the vibe from the market and the fan base and how well everybody's responded to it. What everybody's got to remember is these are the opponents in the Big 12 are ones that, they just resonate with our fans because we were in the league with a lot of those schools in the past, and they're used to seeing them and playing them and having the neighborhood rivalries where you can talk trash to your neighbor who went to Baylor or whatever. That's what everybody's so excited about and can't wait for this fall.
Chris, you mentioned the scars about getting, left out of a power conference and, the weaving that schools like yours, but yours in particular, have had to do to get to this point. How many stages of we need to get into this next level, well, maybe it's never going to happen, before it was full commitment from the university to get back on this path to get in the power conference before you did get in the Big 12?
That really it started when Renew got here, and the alignment and the visibility and the importance that she placed on athletics, because she knew that the role it would have as we were trying to grow the profile of the university as a whole. And frankly, it's played out exactly the way you imagine it would. It's like a movie script, from her arrival to the investment that we've made in capital, to the investment in facilities, to the investment we've made in coaches. As you guys have seen what we've done with Kelvin and Dana to attract that level of talent here. It's worked. And then to reconcile that with the growth of the university at the same time. I mean, shoot, when I went to school here, I graduated in 92. We were 27,000 students. We're sitting here today and we're 47,000. Those things absolutely correlate. And, that's what has helped get us to this point. And, now we got to make the most of it.
So I've noticed, and I put up graphics of all 4 of the incoming schools who will join the Big 12 officially, although we basically just put our arms around all 4 back in the fall of 2021 when the Big 12 reacted. But everybody's having these countdowns, these get-together, these events, these parties, these receptions, and much more. To me, Chris, what I love about that is everybody can't wait to get in. Even though it's been officially, really, it kind of was in the fall of 21. But do you get that same impression that you can't and neither can the others wait to get in, and the conference can't wait to have you in?
Yeah, absolutely. And our peers in the conference and from the conference staff itself have been awesome from the time it became official, I guess about 18 months ago now, to where we are today. everybody has been just incredible partners and been very ingratiating to us. Now, we hope that continues in the fall when we start competing. But, I mean that tongue in cheek, but it's been exactly what you could hope for. And I'm thankful for it. And again, we got to make the most of this chance.
Chris Pezman, the Director of Athletics at Houston, with us on the countdown to July the 1st, entry into the Big 12 on 365 Sports.
Chris, do you ever consider it's you've planned it. You said hiring Kelvin Sampson and all that, but particularly basketball's run here is pretty excellent timing on getting people excited about buying new tickets as well, because you're not, especially in that sport, going in wondering if you're going to be good and you can compete with this level because you've made deep NCAA tournament runs for many consecutive years now.
Yeah, here's the reality. We're sold out of basketball. We have been for the last couple of years. And that was, in the American, where we had some great opponents, but certainly not the strength of what we're going to have in the Big 12 game in, game out. As I mentioned, we went up 50% across the entire building in pricing. And we're at 92% renewed in the middle of the summer, and we don't play basketball for another 120 days or whatever it is. That is proof of concept. I mean, that you couldn't paint a better picture of what it means, and the success of that program and the profile that it's given us. And it's really been, it's our flag bearer as we transition into Big 12, because if there's a program for us that's probably most ready to compete day one, I would say it's basketball. And, coach would tell you the opposite. We got to get ready for the Big 12, the game in, game out competition, but at least the infrastructure's in place. We've got great facilities. We're doing a $5 million renovation of our practice facility locker rooms this summer. That building's 6 years old, but that came because of this opportunity that the Big 12 has provided us, the enthusiasm, the excitement, and the people's willingness from our donors to buy in to support us.
You mentioned basketball as perhaps the one most ready, and obviously football has played against Big 12 teams. We know where they are, and obviously there's a lot to do there with Dana Holgorsen. Where are you athletic department-wise? How many of the sports do you feel like are ready now, and how many do you need to tweak a little bit and kind of watch how it goes the next few months or maybe the next school year? Yeah,
that's a great question. In my mind, what we've talked to our coaches about, look, if you win the Big 12 regular season or postseason title, you're probably a top 5 team in the country. And I don't think that's a stretch, whether it's baseball, basketball, football, whatever it is, softball, volleyball. If you're winning the Big 12, you're one of the top teams in the country. So what we've talked to our coaches about, and this is not defeatist, loser attitude or anything like it. It's reality. For us to go into the Big 12, let's focus on being winning programs and getting to the postseason, and then build up to compete for championships. Again, I think probably about a third of our programs are prepared to maybe compete and maybe have a chance to sniff around, playing for, at the top end of the conference. And I don't even want to say winning the conference, but, working towards that or fighting for it. I'd say about a third of them. I would tell you probably everybody else, there's going to be an acclimation period. But to me, I'm looking at them, I'm like, get to the postseason. Getting in as a G5 school, as an at-large, if you didn't win the American, it was very difficult. And we were probably, baseball got 2 teams in the tournament this year. Really should have been 1 because Tulane won their way in the tournament. And you could go across the board, whether it's volleyball, softball, those sports, that's where our mindset has to be a little bit different as we get ready for this competition for the next couple of years. I was doing a little research on this, trying to kind of make sure my expectations were grounded. You look at Utah when they went into Pac-12, and they were as good as anybody at that point in football. It took them 5 years till they competed for the conference championship in football. I certainly I'm not that patient. I think the first couple of years, have a winning record. If you have a plus 500 record in the Big 12 and you win your non-conference games, and again, I'm talking generally, you're going to get into the postseason. You'll have a chance to be in the NCAA tournament in whatever sport it is. And that's what our initial focus needs to be as we build to compete for championships.
Chris Pezman, by the way, we have a man on the chat room that said, tell Pez, I said hello from a fellow Sigma Chi cheerleader / walk-on. He knows me. Hopefully he doesn't shout out my name.
I can think of a couple, and I'll save them from the embarrassment that they're probably trying to throw my way.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, what's this week like? Seriously, obviously it's very high octane, full throttle, but what would you say on a scale of 1 to 10 right now it feels like on campus?
Oh, well, besides the fact that we're all on the surface of the sun here in Houston or in Texas this week, it's 105 outside right now, but it's as excited as I've seen this place, and I've been around this university affiliated with it since the late 80s. It's through the roof. It's literally a 10. And, we're going to do a toast Friday night at midnight. We were trying to figure out, what's the appropriate thing to do with it. It's 4th of July weekend. It's hot as hell. So, one of the good lessons that came out of the pandemic is we're like, you know what, screw it. Let's do a toast with everybody online, open it up to anybody who wants to come and have a little bit of fun with it. We're going to have a sneak peek of our football facility that we'll break ground on after the end of the season. Right after the Oklahoma State game, we're breaking ground on a $140 million end zone facility for football.
Great.
So we'll give everybody a sneak peek to see that. We're going to have some messages in there from the commissioner and our president and chancellor. So it'll be a fun night, and it'll be a moment that we can all look back on and remember where we are when it happened. And, to think that I have the opportunity to be in this role at this moment, speaking personally for a second, is just, I'm so grateful because it's such a special time.
How much has Brett Yormark, how important has he been even for Houston? Obviously for the conference with what he did with the extension back in the fall, some of these ideas about Houston and Kansas playing a basketball game in Mexico, all of this, you probably knew of him, but Bob Bowlesby was there when you were offered the invitation. How much has he blown you away, or how would you describe him?
Brett has been a breath of fresh air, and I mean that really for the industry. From a guy that's coming from the outside in, and look, I worked in sports and entertainment when I was away from this for 10 years. I was the director of operations at Realignment Park, and so I knew a lot of the people in the outside industry. And Brett's reputation has lived up. He is an outside the box thinker. The aggressiveness that he leads with, and the tone that is created for the Big 12 and as a league has been extraordinary. And what the value that he has placed with being able to get the TV deal done and the sequence that it has, the street cred that he's gotten with that with everybody has been extraordinary. So it's given him the ideas he's had to monetize different aspects and create intellectual property for the league, whether it's the combine in Dallas for football, the efforts in Mexico, and there's some other aspects out there that we're chasing, whether it's data aggregation rights around gaming. This guy's he's playing 3D chess is the best way I can summarize it, and he's doing a great job of it. And to have him in that leadership role for us in such a volatile time in our industry as we're working through transfer portal, NIL, all these things, we couldn't be in better hands.
You want to know where Chris Pezman gets that bulldog in him, that fight in him? He won the Wilson Whitley Fighting Heart Award back in 1992 as a player on the University of Houston football team, was a part of the team with Andre Ware that won a Heisman Trophy. And that's it. I mean, Wilson Whitley is one of the greatest defensive linemen in the history of college football. That must have meant a great deal to you.
It did. And it's you saying that now is really, I got goosebumps because it's not something that people reference a lot, but it was, I had a really special time here at the University of Houston when I was playing as an athlete. We beat everybody. I mean, probably the funnest game I had in college was beat A&M in the Dome in 1990, and they had Bucky Richardson, and for some reason they just started throwing the ball, and we ended up coming back, and Jenkins decided to figure out how to run the ball finally, and we just shoved it down their throat and won that game. So we had a lot of really special times here, and the ability to be here in a leadership role during this transition is one of the high points of my life.
Was that game on a Thursday night?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It was one of the original Thursday night ones. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you have any particular, like, I know you don't want to like call anybody out, but as someone who had that Southwest Conference blood in them, do you have that like, oh, I can't wait to see a TCU game that counts twice as much, all that in you still?
You know what that game is.
Oh, I know which one it is. I know which one it is, but it only going to last for a year. But
yeah. Well, I'll tell you, legitimately, all of them, but the ones that are in state, you get a little, there's a little something extra in those. And yeah, there's one in particular that we're very much looking forward to. I know our fans are especially, and I'd almost venture to tell you, Dana could go 1-11, and if he won the right one, he'd be fine.
Yeah, and that might give you an extra year of being more patient too, if that ended up being true. Last thing, yeah. Kristen, I know you've given us a lot of valuable time. This is a crazy time in college athletics with the transfer portal, NIL, and then there's realignment, and you're a part of that because of what's going to happen officially on Saturday. How much do you still monitor what else might be happening around college football with other conferences who are trying to figure out their future?
A lot. I don't know that we're done with the movement, obviously. I mean, obviously as a league, we've got our eyes open and paying attention to what's going on because there's, it feels like there's some opportunity there for us. So you can't ignore it because if you don't keep your eyes on the horizon, something's going to jump up and bite you. And, whether it's realignment, and obviously we've felt the pains of maybe not having the ability to foresee some things that were coming, 30 years ago. So, that's a lesson that I carry forward to this day. So make sure you're paying attention to what's going on nationally because you just don't want to be surprised if there's some movement that's occurring. And frankly, that carried over for me as we were working through realignment. Candidly, when I first got here, I thought the opportunities were going to be further west. I didn't see the Texas OU thing coming when it did. I thought maybe it was further out. I thought there would be opportunity in the Pac-12 just because they were kind of landlocked geographically from time zones, and it felt like they needed to get into a more central market time zone to be able to expand on their TV deal and the offerings that they would be able to provide the next time the TV deal opens. And then, it worked out for us that there was a vacuum created when Texas and OU left and allowed us to help fill that void. And that's frankly all we were looking for is just give us a chance. Let us get in the room and tell the story of what we've achieved. And fortunately, it played out the right way. But you better be paying attention to what's happening because things are moving at a pretty brisk clip. And if we don't pay attention, we're going to get got, and that's not going to happen on my watch.
Yeah, it's all about growing and being ready to make whatever move you can if it's available. Chris, thank you for a lot of time. Can't wait for you to be able to celebrate late into the night on Friday. Enjoy the entrance into the Big 12. You've been great to be a part of our show. We appreciate it. We look forward to having more and more segments with those from the University of Houston throughout the next few weeks and months as well, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, fellas. I really appreciate it. And again, this is something I really enjoy. So anytime, give me a call. I'm happy to be on. And we're so excited to be where we are and can't wait for it to officially be Saturday so we can just keep on chugging ahead and get ready for the fall.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Enjoy the week. Enjoy Saturday, midnight on Friday. That's Chris Pezman. That's a really filled with a lot of juice right there with Chris Pezman, University of Houston Director of Athletics, with us on 365 Sports. You can feel that passion. Tom Homo, who is the AD at Brigham Young, will join us tomorrow. Mac is on tomorrow, not today, as we get the feel from schools around the conference that will be a part of the Big 12 starting up on Saturday. Craig Smoak, we're all three on the set for the first time together in 2.5 months because of Paul's trip to Hawaii. Craig had to get a little bit done with his car. Everything come out okay?
Yeah.
All right, good. Good to have you. Good to have you. If you came in late for Chris Pezman, go back and listen to it again because I think I will too. He was fantastic. We've discussed Baylor's commitment. Texas Tech got an edge rusher commitment. Baylor's was a linebacker. Much more to get to, including all that. Chad Simmons on 3.com, their national recruiting director. He will discuss what all of this means next on 365 Sports. Stonewood Dental, Robinson, Texas, got a text earlier. yesterday about my appointment that I have on July the 6th to go in and probably get a little more work done, maintenance on my dental work, because Dr. Steve Childress wants to make sure we stay ahead of the curve after playing catch up for years of just not really being smart enough to, man, that kind of doesn't feel right, or my gum seems swollen, or what is that? That kind of tingles. And getting dental work fixed, he's helped me out with that and continues to do so. Stonewood Dental in Robinson, Texas. From the time that you walk through the front door and you're greeted with a smile till that you sit in the waiting room, and it won't be for long until somebody comes to get you, whether it's for a teeth cleaning or something more severe, you, I promise, will enjoy the experience. Now, how often do we say that when we talk about visiting a dentist? You will there, because they're incredible with what they do. Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he's my dentist in Robinson, Texas.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
It's Ram season at Allen Samuels in Waco, and the deals couldn't be any hotter. Shop the greatest selection of new inventory in Central Texas and save big on Ram trucks. Now offering 10% off MSRP on a new 2023 Ram 1500 Lone Star Crew Cab, or get 2.9% for 72 months. The choice is yours. Plus an extra $500 bonus cash to first responders. Allen Samuels in Waco is the place to shop Ram trucks. Visit today or browse online at allensamuelsdcj.com.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Congratulations to a campus of champions. LSU, after getting drummed in game 2, my God, they came back with a vengeance and just beat the tar out of Florida, 18-4. That thing ended pretty quickly. When it got to be about 6-2, you could see the balloon pop for the Gators. And LSU has now won the women's national title earlier this spring, and they win the baseball national title. And they were really, really, really good in football with Brian Kelly. Men's basketball, of course, is something that needs to improve, and it will after the coaching changes and a little bit of drama surrounding that program. Chad Simmons, On3 Sports. He's the director of recruiting and joins us with Paul Catalina, Craig, and David Smoak on 365 Sports. Chad, thank you very much for the time. I know there's always a surge right before National Signing Day, but when is, in your opinion, like the biggest surge? Is it during the month of June? Is it another month? When does that happen?
No, the biggest surge, I think, definitely is the month of June into July. I kind of call, I've been in this industry for about 18, 19 years. So I was in this deep before there was an early signing period. I kind of call June now the old January of recruiting, where we had the one signing day in February. I think June is kind of that month that sets up the month of July to become like that signing day, that old February. So I do think June is that month into July, have a 2-month thing where most of these guys, a lot of big names, make their decisions.
When, in your opinion right now, who's the hot program? And not just because they're in the top 10 or whatever, but who do you see right now as perhaps the 2 or 3 that are starting to get boiling hot?
Obviously Florida had, a massive weekend, a week or so ago where they had 4 or 5 guys pop in a 2 or 3 day span. So obviously Florida shot up in the On3 team rankings too. I believe, things change so quickly. I think right now, number 3 in the country. Obviously Ohio State had a big weekend, pulling a couple of guys from Glenn High School there in Ohio, leading the way with Bryce West. And you got, of course, Georgia has stayed pretty consistent this year with some big names expected to pop maybe Georgia's way in the coming weeks as well. So I think Florida has been one of those hot teams. USC has caught fire here as well here early in the summer, but it's going to be a busy, I think, very fluid, a lot of movement, I think, in those team rankings over those next, probably 3 to 4 weeks. So I would say stay tuned, but I think Florida, USC, Georgia are 3 teams up there for sure right now.
Florida, interesting in that they had a hot streak and that they're coming off a rough year. And then, of course, the whole thing with Jaden Rashada. How have they been able to turn that around with the recruits they have coming in? Is it kind of built around Lagway as well coming in?
Lagway's huge. He is definitely the face of this recruiting class, right there in Willis High School in Willis, Texas. And he makes it known that he's a Florida Gator. There's been all kind of rumors circulating about at one time, could USC flip him when they lost maybe out on Dylan Raiola, or could A&M come in and try to keep him home and flip him? But he's made it pretty clear to the Florida staff. Again, nothing's ever done in this industry anymore until they sign, but he's definitely reaching out to guys that are committed to Florida, guys that are looking at Florida, making it known that he's here to stay with the Gators. And he's been a big part. And I think obviously Napier also had some turnover on that staff. That's done a good job, getting a new receivers coach, D coordinator, tight ends coach. Those guys went to the NFL, and he had to make some quick, big decisions there. And they've done a good job keeping that chemistry. And the kids, when they get kids on campus at the University of Florida, they rave about, the community, the people, not just the staff, the coaching staff, but the recruiting staff, the people under Napier and those coaches. So they've done a great job, I think, there too, kind of building that continuity and making guys feel like family and very important to this class. I'm sorry.
Chad, you mentioned how long you've been in the recruiting business, and obviously a lot of things have changed, particularly in the last couple of years. Has there been a noticeable difference just in terms of, the way that you hear about recruits and what they're looking for, NIL, for example, or is it kind of the same old, it's about relationships in the end? Is recruiting similar or vastly different from maybe a few years ago?
Oh, it's definitely different. Obviously with the NIL's changed everything. Obviously it's every recruit is different. What does it mean to them, to that family? Are they about long-term goals, whether it be NIL? They're trying to cash in now on that name, image, likeness. What's more important? I think there's still, relationships definitely matter. I think now it used to be all about going back 10, 15 years ago. it was all about relationships, all about who these kids trust, who their parents want to put them in the hands of. That goes into it as well. But now it's about really two things. Relationships are still there, but I think two things have trumped that, and that's NIL and player development. End of the game, all these guys, end of the day, all these guys want to be in the NIL and in the NFL, playing for the pros and getting paid on Sundays. But then NIL has become a big factor. Again, how big depends on kind of who the recruit is and what's most important to them. But I think NIL and player development, then relationships all factor in now to that decision.
Dave Aranda and Baylor, what they've done, they I think have a little small handful of commitments, but they got a 10. That's to me two handfuls. But Kylan Reed's the one who committed earlier today. 4-star linebacker, picked Baylor over Utah and Oklahoma State. Do you know much about him?
Heard a good bit about him. Obviously, Dave Aranda is known as a defensive guy. So, guys want to play, for him. Obviously had a very good career, Wisconsin, then going to obviously LSU. I think he's done a good job, obviously, getting those guys in state to kind of, buy into what he wants to do and what he's trying to build there in state. Obviously Kylan Reed, obviously he's a guy that's kind of somewhat under the radar. They've had on campus. They've self-evaluated. He had some offers from schools like Oklahoma State, some more Big 12 programs, and obviously getting a guy they still could come in and play and move around and be an athletic kid. I know I've talked to some of our guys about him in the past. They feel he can move, he can run. So it might be a good find for Aranda and that staff, in the long run.
Have you found that schools that did not feel comfortable recruiting nationally, so I say feel comfortable, or had a percentage that, look, we want 90% of our guys to come from our state, and then the other 10% will fill in from other places, have felt more confident and can expand that with the transfer portal, with NIL, with all that out there now? Because before it was, if you hadn't heard of us, then we're probably not going to get you. Now it feels like schools like Oklahoma State, I hear all over the place for all over the country, and they didn't really do that before.
Yeah, I think the portal, number one, has changed that. I think that's the big one. Obviously, NFL, that's still evolving. There's still a lot of, they're trying to, make rules and this and that and the other, from the federal all the way down to NCAA, and who knows what happens there in the coming years. But I think the big thing about going more national from a recruiting standpoint, I think starts with the transfer portal. And, the biggest thing about colleges now is not only are they recruiting the high school players, they are now also recruiting transfer portal, and they have to re-recruit, every January, every December, their own roster to stay, and that's the thing. It's all about these kids want to play like right away. If they don't play year one, definitely by year two, they're typically going to be out in the portal. So I think the portal, more than maybe the high school or NIL, has changed more of the, I guess, more in going abroad to recruit nationally for schools like Oklahoma State or anyone in the country. I think that's where it starts, is right there at the portal.
Chad, what have you thought about the waves Joey McGuire's been able to make? It's unavoidable to not see some cactus gif, I'm sure, at some point with the commits that they've been picking up. But a lot of energy out in Lubbock right now. Obviously have to continue proving it on the field. But what do you make of just what's sort of building out in West Texas at the moment?
Yeah, like you said, a lot of excitement. I think he's already rolling in with over a dozen commitments, in this class. I think he's somewhere, again, I don't have it in front of me, I think he's somewhere in the top 20 or 25 for us. Again, that changes with every commitment as it happens, and a lot's going on right now here as we are in late in June. But there's definitely a lot of buzz around that program, that staff he's put together, the energy, the continuity within the program, and obviously the high buzz recently around that program is who could be next, and it's right there in Texas, and 5-star wide receiver Micah Hudson. So a lot of eyes are on him. He was one time considered maybe a Texas lean. Now that's shifted the last few weeks, and even last couple of months more behind the scenes about Texas Tech being a real player there for Micah Hudson. And but there is a lot of excitement, a lot of buzz brewing. I'd say more than I've heard in quite some time around that program since McGuire's taken over.
So where does Colin Simmons end up?
He's probably going to ride this thing out, but I think there's no doubt, there's no denying that the hot team right now is Texas. And for me, that they've always been a top two. It's been talk about just for what I do behind the scenes, digging with this source and that source. It's always been kind of connecting the dots. He's going to enjoy the process. He's going to have fun with the visits. He's going to have fun on social media. I think depending on who you talk to over the last 3 or 4 months, it's always been consistent for me, and that's been Texas or LSU. You know, you have schools like Alabama, Georgia, Miami, Florida, Oregon, Texas A&M. A&M, I think, has entered this race and maybe become a top 3 program to watch with Colin Simmons. But coming off this official visit to Texas, I think he's always been one that's going to end up staying somewhat close to home. I know he and his family, mainly his mother, who is very close to Colin, love the staff at Texas. They feel very comfortable around the people in Austin. And I think Texas, you know, is kind of setting the pace right now as that top school. Again, I don't think, you know, things change all the time, but I think right now his plan is to ride this out, make a decision in December. But I think Texas has definitely put themselves in a good position for Colin Simmons.
Chad, who do you think of the 4 incoming Big 12 schools has the best opportunity to seize momentum in recruiting? Who could potentially see the greatest uptick? And I know it's an evolving landscape with Texas and OU no longer giving their kind of sway to the Big 12. But Cincinnati, BYU, U of H, UCF, what kind of potential do you see from one of those schools in particular?
Well, you know, I'm from Atlanta, so I'm down here in the South. And I'll say one thing about a school I hear about a lot that's created new excitement around that program, and that's UCF. I think they've done a great job on the recruiting trail, especially this cycle, going out and getting a guy like 4-star running back Stacey Gage recently. They got some guys, I think, that are some silent commitments that will come forward in the next 2 to 3 weeks that will surprise some people. They're going to head-to-head with schools like Florida, Miami, Alabama for numerous players this cycle. And they're not backing down. You know, Gus Malzahn put together a very good staff, a younger staff. He's hiring guys that he coached along the way at Auburn and other places to come on and be those like recruiting assistants that can connect with these recruits, get them on campus, feel comfortable around the parents and the player. So really, I think UCF is definitely one to watch. We know obviously they play in Florida, which is a hotbed for recruiting. If they can go head-to-head and win a few battles against Florida State, against Miami, against Florida, and even go head-to-head with guys like Alabama that would take some of these linemen, they're going after and beat them and win some of those battles, they can do some damage in the Big 12. They'll be an athletic team. Obviously, Malzahn's won in the SEC in the past, so I think they have a good staff at the top. And if they can get the right players and have some momentum right now, they could be one to watch in the future.
Hey, Chad, thank you very much for your time. Were you out? You were at the Elite 11 competition, weren't you?
I was.
Was there a quarterback other than those everyone expected that jumped out at you in any way?
I would definitely say Trevor Jackson, a kid that's from West Orange, Florida. He was one of the, you know, in our world, one of the 2 3-star prospects that was in that group of 22 that came in with a handful of P5 offers. I think you've already seen him add offers from schools like Miami and others since that, just a week and a half ago. I think if he holds out and doesn't commit anytime soon, he may become one of the hottest uncommitted quarterbacks in the country the next 2 or 3 months. He's an athletic kid from Central Florida, has a big arm. I think he showed some accuracy out there, threw well off different platforms. So to me, outside of those guys like Julian Sayers, Dylan Raiola, the guys that were expected to perform that way, Trevor Jackson probably for me was the biggest surprise.
Thank you, Chad. Enjoy the rest of your day, the week, the month, and football season around the corner, and especially this grind right now with national and recruiting. Appreciate your time. That's Chad Simmons, on3.com, director of recruiting with us and giving us his insight on the various schools. I saw just a minute ago, you know, I mentioned this yesterday, Stanford is like inside the top 10 right now, and they picked up a commitment today with a pretty good player that was looking at a handful of schools that were Power 5 schools too. So they've got a lot of commitments, like 25 now. And I was just kind of curious that they've jumped up. Stanford have been a part of that mix. Whether eventually it floats downward because of the other larger schools as far as football, crazy good schools moving up ahead of them, remains to be seen. All right, when we come back, we're not done. Will Backus of CBS Sports wrote a story earlier today about NLI, National Letter of Intent, with some rules that everybody needs to know about, including the student athletes who sign it, the schools who get it, and what are the differences now moving forward. Most of it appears to be like everything else, pro-student athlete, and that's next on 365 Sports. City of Woodway, go to discoverwoodway.com for more information. If you want to be a part of, if you have a special event and you want to rent the Arboretum, the Pavilion, the Carling Bright Arboretum, it's phenomenal. From weddings and rehearsal dinners and even like business meetings, symposiums, and more. And coming up, the 4th of July parade next Tuesday, July the 4th, from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m., and it is free. Join the City of Woodway at the Woodway Public Safety Department hosting their annual 4th of July parade. Line up at 8:45 at the Crossroads Fellowship Church and then enjoy the tournament. The parade begins at 9 o'clock in the morning. Participants encouraged to wear the red, white, and blue. Also, non-motorized bikes and skateboards are allowed. It's the City of Woodway celebrating 4th of July, Tuesday. DiscoverWoodway.com.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon wrap fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes, cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef, and chicken fajitas, and always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit Marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
It was broad daylight. I stepped into a gas station for 5 minutes to grab a snack, and just like that, my car was broken into. They made out like a bandit. My laptop, my phone, everything. I called my agent to see what could be done, and he restored my faith in humanity. My claim was processed so quickly, and I was able to recover my losses.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Chuck Verno, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Chuck Verno, 720 North 64th Street in Waco, 254-732-1161. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Well, back at CBS Sports wrote a story earlier today about any kind of rules changes, or at least notifications on national letters of intent. It's kind of, sometimes you get mixed up. NIL, name, image, likeness, NLI, national letter of intent. Will joins us on 365 Sports with Paul Craig, and I'm David Smoak. Will, what is the biggest change in your opinion?
Yeah, so I think the biggest change is they allow, so if you sign an NLI and then there's a head coaching change, the big allowance now is that you don't have to request a release from your NLI, or you still have to request it, but a school can't block it. So the big thing is when an athlete wants out of their NLI, they have to submit an official request, and the school has to grant that request. But if there's a coaching change, then that request no longer has to be granted. Or that request no longer can be blocked by the school. So basically, a coaching change, a kid can get out of the NLI pretty much automatically.
Well, does this smooth out the kinks of the rule, or in any way and make it better, or do you expect any kind of challenges to it?
I wouldn't expect any challenges to it. I think it aligns with a lot of the stuff the NCAA is doing with the transfer portal right now, where if there's a coaching change, then kids can transfer pretty much anytime they want. I don't think there'll be challenges to it. I think it's, positive towards the players, and I don't think it'll cause schools too much headache, just because it kind of makes sense if a school, or if a kid, signs on to play for a certain coach, that coach goes elsewhere, they get the opportunity to go elsewhere as well if they so choose.
Well, what kind of penalty are they talking about in terms of, what you can and cannot do? What are kind of the guardrails, if you will, for what entails a player having to potentially sit out versus when he declares and those types of things?
So if an athlete or a prospect submits a request for their release and it doesn't get granted, pretty much the only recourse that they can go through is to transfer, or they could still back out of their NLI. The penalty that comes with that is they have to miss a season of football, and they have to complete a one-year residency, a one-year academic residency at their next institution, which is basically just equivalent to sitting out of football. So they're not going to be eligible to play if they're not granted their release, or if they don't meet any of the new circumstances that were passed today. So basically they just have to sit out a year. And most colleges would probably use that as a redshirt year, so you still maintain 4 years of eligibility with the prospect. But yeah, it would just delay their ability to play and get on the field by a year.
I've seen the pressure of social media where someone tries to get out of their national letter of intent, and this is not even if it's a coaching change, but perhaps whatever reason. How is there a percentage of how many want to get out of the NLI and actually do, even if they're not supposed to be?
I don't know if there's an exact percentage, and I'd honestly say it's a pretty rare case to see a prospect sign with a school and then immediately request to get out of their NLI. It's not a very common thing. A lot of times what you'll see is a guy goes through with their NLI, spends a year at a school, and then transfers because maybe the outlook wasn't what they thought it would be. They got to campus and the culture maybe wasn't a fit, whatever it may be. I think it's way more common to see a guy transfer after being at an institution for 1 to 2 years than it is to see a kid request his release from an NLI. There have been some pretty prolific cases of NLI requests and actually them being granted. Jaden Rashada was a big one last year. He signed with Florida, and then there was reportedly an NIL deal that fell through, and then he requested his release. It was granted, ended up at Arizona State. That's the most high-profile one I can think of recently, but it's not a very high percentage of that happening.
Will, I read your other column about the most improved units across college football, and the two that stuck out to me, you had 5 different ones, and 3 of them had a bunch of players coming in, maybe a new coach, but Notre Dame and Clemson. Notre Dame with Sam Hartman at quarterback, and Clemson with Garrett Riley, the offensive coordinator. Just that one person makes that much of a difference to them. Why did that stand out to you so much on those two in particular?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say with Clemson, bringing in a guy like Garrett Riley, one, it's a big move for Dabo Swinney because a lot of times when he goes to replace an assistant coach, he stays in-house. He'll either promote a guy that's been, a position-specific assistant or an analyst or what have you. He doesn't go outside a lot to make big hires. So him bringing on a guy like Garrett Riley to run his offense is pretty monumental. And I think it's a huge step in the right direction for Clemson because you look at what Garrett Riley did with TCU. He turned Max Duggan into a guy that didn't even really enter the year as a solidified starter. He took him and transformed him into a Heisman finalist. TCU made it to the College Football Playoff National Championship on the back of a really great offense. He produced 5 NFL draft picks in 2023. You bring a guy like that to Clemson, who I think has recruited really well offensively. Obviously, they got a 5-star quarterback, Cade Klubnik, 5-star running back in Will Shipley, and a wide receiver room that has a lot of talent on paper that hasn't been unlocked yet. I just think Garrett Riley's the perfect kind of guy to just unlock that talent and bring innovation that Clemson really desperately needs. And then at Notre Dame's case, obviously you bring in who I think is Notre Dame's best quarterback immediately in quite some time. I mean, I'd have to go back and think pretty hard about who on paper is better than Sam Hartman that Notre Dame's had recently. And so when you bring a caliber of a guy that's thrown for almost 13,000 yards and accounted for almost 130 total touchdowns, I think that just immediately changes an offense's outlook. You could say, Notre Dame lost Michael Mayer. That's a really tough loss to replace. And they don't have a ton of talent at wide receiver. But I think Sam Hartman is the kind of guy that's just going to elevate everyone around him. And he's just that big of a difference maker that Notre Dame's been missing a star quarterback, a guy that just really, just can handle everything, go out there, make plays on his own, and elevate everyone else. And I think Sam Hartman checks all those boxes off.
Will, you also mentioned in the same article the defensive units for both Oklahoma and Texas, obviously on their way out and trying to get themselves ready to go for SEC play here in a year, but one more go-round with the 12. And seems like defensively they're kind of coming from different places, right? Like UT was pretty good, and it appears that they just are kind of rounding out or filling out the holes, whereas Oklahoma, as you stated, and I think everybody thinks, can't be any worse, right? What have you thought about the approaches both have taken to try and shore up that side of the football?
Yeah, with Oklahoma, it's funny you point that out. I think last year was pretty shocking because you bring on a guy like Brent Venables, who was obviously an incredible defensive coordinator for years, probably, the best defensive coordinator for a really long time, a guy that turned down all kinds of coaching opportunities to stay as a defensive coordinator and finally went to Oklahoma. And his first year there, and the defense is pitiful. I mean, they weren't good at all in pretty much every area. So entering year 2, I think it's really interesting, and I think that they should be better because he did a really good job using the transfer portal to address really glaring areas. I mentioned their pass rush. They had 28 sacks total last season, and that ranked 64th nationally. So that's, approaching the bottom half of the nation in terms of FBS schools. But he went out and got a guy from Wake Forest and Rondell Bothroyd, who would have led Oklahoma in sacks last season. He got a guy in Deshaun McCullough, who's a rising sophomore, but a former blue chip prospect who should bring a ton of talent to edge. And I think Oklahoma also brings back some really interesting talent on their team that could get to the quarterback. So he really honed in on fixing that pass rush and making sure Oklahoma's more disruptive. And I think that should translate to a better defense. And yeah, with Texas, you pointed out, Texas wasn't super active in the transfer portal, not like a lot of schools are. But they did plug some holes in their secondary with Jalen Catalon, an Arkansas transfer, a guy who, if he can stay healthy, he has all-conference, maybe even all-American upside. It's just the question is, how healthy can he be? He's had pretty major injuries the past couple years, both of them shoulder injuries. So you worry about the shoulder. You worry if he can stand up for a whole season. But if he can, that's a huge get. And then a guy like Gavin Holmes, a corner from Wake Forest, he just brings some experience to a cornerback group at Texas that's pretty young overall. They've got some experienced starters, but past that, there's not a ton of depth in terms of experience. So having a guy like that can come in and provide experience is pretty big. And then, Texas is in the same situation where they bring back a good majority of their defensive production last year. Baron Sorrell, their top sacker last year, Jalen Ford, linebacker who was first team All Big 12 last year. So they've got key pieces that are coming back, and they did a really good job of using the transfer portal strategically to kind of plug some holes.
You know, the Big 12, as you know, expands to 4 teams officially on Saturday. We've kind of kicked around with Texas and Oklahoma. But your thoughts about, Will, this conference that's about to add 4 new schools? All of them have had some success in football, especially with what Cincinnati did a couple of years ago. Brigham Young's basically a Power 5 school and has been who they played. Your thoughts about what's going to happen with the mixture of 4 teams along with the right now Texas, OU, and the other 8?
Right. Well, I think for, at least 2023, I don't know if there's much of an argument that the Big 12 is the most exciting conference to watch. I mean, you've got 16 teams, and like you mentioned, you're bringing in 4 of the group of 5's best. I think it's worth just seeing how they translate to playing on a consistent Power 5 schedule, playing 8, 9, sometimes 10 Power 5 games. How are they going to fare with that? And then, of course, you've got Texas and Oklahoma's swan song. I think Texas and Oklahoma, if they play up to their talent and if things work out, both could compete for the Big 12 championship. The question is, are they going to live up to that talent? And I think that's been the question with those schools for a while now. But if everything goes well, they could compete for the Big 12, and I'm sure both of those schools would love to capture a Big 12 title right before leaving. The 4 new additions, I think all of them are really interesting cases. If you look at it, I think UCF is probably in the best position to have the most immediate success. I don't think any of the 4 are going to come out of the blue and compete for the Big 12 in the first year. But I think UCF has a pretty good shot at least having a positive conference record and maybe making a little bit of noise, pulling off a couple upsets at home. It's really exciting to watch what they're going to look like in 2023. And I think even beyond that, as Cincinnati, Houston, UCF, and BYU start to recruit more at a Power 5 level and start to get used to more of the Power 5 level of competition, watching how those schools develop over the years. I think the Big 12 is set up really well in terms of on-field product and just what, watchability and how exciting it'll be to tune into their games.
Will, thank you. Appreciate your time. National letter of intent penalties to lighten for college athletes beginning 24-25. That's part of the story that Will has today on CBS Sports. Anything else?
Yeah, I was going to say I'm all in on the changing of the name, National Letter of Intent, to LOI or something else. I saw you made that comment, and I am down for that because there's been so much NIL, NLI confusion when talking about the topic. But I did want to ask one more question about NLI, Will, and that's like, what do you think's kind of left out there as far as the freedom side of things for the athlete? I mean, it seems as though whether it be transfer rules or name, image, likeness, various things have kind of fallen the way of the athlete after decades of it not being that way. Is there anything else out there on the horizon that you could see changing in the near future?
I'm not sure if anything immediate. I mean, I think college football is in a kind of holding pattern right now, right? Because a lot of these changes happened at once. I mean, you had the 1-year transfer waiver, and then immediately after that, there was the name, image, and likeness reform. And I feel like the NCAA kind of opened up a Pandora's box a little bit with all that, because now it's, you've heard a lot of coaches equate it to the Wild West. There's supposed to be a lot of regulations, but not a whole lot of them are happening. And so I don't know if the NCAA is going to be too keen on making any other major changes anytime in the near future until they can really sort out a lot of the changes that they've made. And I don't know if there's a whole lot that they could do in the near future to make it more player-friendly or more angled towards the player, unless they just eliminated, the one-time transfer waiver and said, hey, you can transfer however much you want and you'll be eligible right away. But yeah, I think the NCAA is probably going to be a little gun-shy with making any more sweeping reforms, just with how complicated things are now, how much outcry there's been from a lot of pretty prominent coaches about the way things are regulated and managed. I don't think we'll see any more movement until the NCAA could hammer out what they have right now and really work that through.
It was like a convergence of everything at once, wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, Pandora's box. I mean, they changed everything kind of at once, and it's been difficult to regulate it all.
Will, great stuff. Very well done. The article and also your segment with us. Thank you very much. Will Backus, CBS Sports on the story he had on CBSSports.com that the three changes, or at least some of the nuances to how athletes can get out of their national letter of intent and what are the rules and or the penalties along with it. All right, when we come back, a couple of things to get to. We'll jump into the chat room a little bit today. A couple of other stories, including one Paul printed out and just gave to me. NCAA tells schools to ignore state laws when it comes to NIL. Oh, boy. This is going to end up well. Craig's off the radar a little bit later on. And then also today in the 5 o'clock hour, it will be complicated and yet very, I think, friendly for those who want to know more about where is everything going when it comes to the TV segments and eyeballs in the upcoming football season with all the conferences. This is 365 Sports. Pioneer Steel and Pipe. Since 1943, they opened up their doors, and they have been serving Central Texas, but really more than that. People have come in from everywhere throughout the state to get the product because they have been doing business with Pioneer Steel and Pipe for so long. And then back in December, they opened up their brand new location where their showroom is larger than what they had before. And they have been efficient. They have been professional. They have made sure customer service means everything, and the pricing too. Pioneer Steel and Pipe with their brand new location, the 2,500 square foot showroom, but also with all the other space, all the other product. In fact, several hundred new pieces of product for you, the customer, steel, pipe, metal, and more. And what they have also been able to stress is in the past, you could get steel, pipe, and metal. You could get lengths or tubing, and yet you still might have to cut it. They can do that for you before you arrive to make sure you don't have to go anywhere else to get it cut, or you don't have to cut what you're trying to get to a certain length. Their distribution lanes and the buildings of which they have their product better than ever before. Since 1943, Pioneer Steel and Pipe at pioneerboys.com.
The future's bright. The time is now.
College is what you make it. It's a late-night pizza run and all-nighters coding a new project. It's having big dreams and making them a reality. It's a professor who knows your name and your story. It's preparation for your future, your calling, your life. And at Baylor, it's even more. Baylor, where lights shine bright.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Boots add protection. Good boots help you climb better and move forward faster. And when your son or daughter steps into the boots of a U.S. Army officer, they also learn how to lead. In these boots, they'll gain more confidence with expert training in one of more than 150 occupational specialties. In these boots, they'll stand a little taller and lead a team with diverse backgrounds and areas of expertise to successfully accomplish whatever challenge comes next.
In these boots, they'll earn respect with valuable experience from day one that will give them solid footing for success into the future. Highly qualified candidates who earn a spot on our team can receive comprehensive health care coverage, college tuition assistance, and a bonus of up to $40,000. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
A couple of things. We're going to get to this NIL. State laws and the NCAA advising schools not to pay attention to state laws. We'll have that in a second. But this story was written by Richard Johnson, and this is on SI.com. College football's newest coaches have interesting incentives and clauses in their contract. Now, there's also, clauses for a lot of different things. But one of the clauses in Kenny Dillingham's contract is academic incentives. That's nothing new, but Arizona State's academic grade point average the year before he took over was 2.56. And he starts to get major bonus money if they hit 3.0 or above. He gets $37,500 if a team GPA is at 2.7. $62,500, 2.8, $100,000, 2.9, and $150,000 if the GPA gets above 3.0.
Hey, Arizona State's in the AAU right now. I mean, you can't be running around with a 2.5 GPA and you're at your football team. You're in the AAU, right?
Yeah, and the TV deal hinges on academics.
God, I'm glad everyone's together again. Deion Sanders will earn $1.5 million out of his $5.5 million in total compensation under a clause in his contract called Development of the Student Athlete that is broken down into $500,000 increments. So there's that with Colorado.
And that means grades?
Yes.
I mean, I think it's good that they're, focusing on that side of things because there is, that element of schoolwork that whether people want to believe it or not does exist. And I know there's a whole other argument to be had about, how much does it really sink in or how much does it matter in the end. And, a lot of guys get degrees that they don't even know what they're doing and, they're basically pointless. So, I don't know, maybe let's incentivize actually knowing what you're doing and doing well at academics. I mean, it sounds like probably a good plan considering that, the argument against it is that you're going to say, 90% of guys don't well, then maybe we should concentrate on the 90% of guys who don't make the NFL and make sure that they're, what studying they are doing or what degree they are getting actually is worthwhile. That'd be a nice step forward for college athletics. But, there is the time commitment and all of that. So I guess the next best thing is to say, hey, make good grades and you can make some money as well. I mean, that seems to be the motivating factor for anything and everything these days. Don't see how it can hurt here.
Here are the actual increments. Support of the football program athletes towards attainment of academic skills and development of academic culture. The welfare and development of football program student athletes, including citizenship, supporting the football program engendered from the University of Colorado Boulder student population, and the development of the football program outreach, culture, reputation on campus. So that kind of is more, I would think, up in the air on what that means. That's also another way for, here's another $500,000. But if they have a lot of issues and they have some, if it's not if it's toxic then he's not going to get these $500,000 increments. But it does, and he also has to wear Nike, even though his personal deal is with Under Armour.
Yeah, well, he used to have a personal deal with Nike back in the day, so maybe that can change around at one point. But it is funny to me knowing Deion is now pushing all these academic things, considering when he was a student athlete, he was the poster boy for not. But, everybody changes and everybody's life goes in different directions. It is also probably more important for Colorado now that they have all these high-profile athletes coming in from the transfer portal and coming in rapidly, because when you have that, a lot of times maybe some of the vetting process is not as deep because you have so much roster turnover. So you've got to take extra steps to make sure that you don't have these problems, and that you incentivize the coaching staff to make sure that you don't have problems on campus, especially considering that a couple years ago you could have walked up to somebody on campus and go, I play football for the Colorado team. They go, oh, do you now? Good for you.
Yeah.
I haven't noticed.
Kenny Burns at Kent State, listen to this one. He gets $5,000 if the Golden Flashes beat Akron and earn the Wagon Wheel Trophy, which they have played for 65 years, or played 65 times since 1923, and every year since 1983. Kent State has won 4 straight. So if, in fact, they end up beating Akron, that's a $5,000 bonus for beating their rival.
Wait, every year since when they've won 4 straight?
They've played 65 times, and they have played every year since 1983. Kent State has won 4 consecutive games in the series.
Yeah, I mean, beating your rival or beating, certain teams and getting rewarded for that's nothing really new. I think that's pretty commonplace. And, nice to have, though, an incentive in your contract to say, like, hey, if you, take care of your business against this team or in this rivalry, what have you, that, you're rewarded for it. Lots of bells and whistles like that on these college contracts. So, yeah, that's great for those benefiting from it.
Louisville's Jeff Brom. His contract runs through 2028. It came in, of course, to Louisville as they're trying to figure out a way to replace Satterwhite, who's now at Cincinnati. Satterfield. He's now, Brom, of course, now was at Purdue. Automatically, his contract extends by 1 year if the Cardinals win 7 or more games in any season during the agreement. They didn't bring him in to just kind of get the 7 wins or more. Automatically extends by 2 years if they win 10 games or more for a maximum extension through 2030. Both of the win totals, 7 or 10 wins, includes bowl games. So there's that little nugget on Jeff Brom. How about former Baylor coach Matt Rule at Nebraska? He's getting $5.5 million. He has a contract that if he's still the coach in 2030, he would have what will escalate to $12.5 million. There aren't many, but there are enough, I guess, now that are above $10 million. Rule is set to join them on January 1st of 2027. That's only if he doesn't earn an extension from the Big Red in the meantime, if they start to be successful, which they would do that if he actually got to a bowl game this year.
For his sake and for your sake, Smokey, I hope that Matt Rule is still the coach in 2020, because that would be 7 seasons. And I would assume
he's never been around that long.
2027, you mean?
Yeah.
You said 2020. 2020.
I said 2030. I thought that was 2030.
If he's 20, you said 2020, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah. I thought it was 2030 that he had to.
Yeah, because he's one of those that comes into a place that struggles, builds them up, gets them to a nice level, and then usually, in the case of Temple to Baylor to the NFL, and then that didn't end well. Now he's at Nebraska.
I think, he's a guy who knows, how to build things, as you mentioned, build programs. And, I hope Nebraska fans are patient enough. Lord knows they've waited long enough to get some success going, and hopefully this is the time that actually, gets started and continues. And so for it to continue, that would entail him, not only finding some success pretty early, but then being able to carry that over multiple years. And, if that's the case, then I think that he'd be well rewarded because, of the situation that they've been in, the hunger, the just starving for some success. I don't think you need a clause in that contract. I think if he were to go win some games here pretty early on in the first couple of years, they'd be running to the front door to offer him a brand new contract. But nice to have the clause in there regardless to ensure that, you are going to get yours if, in fact, you do meet certain, goals. But yeah, that's going to be a really interesting situation to watch there in Lincoln with he and Nebraska. I think we have a lot of admiration for him, a lot of respect for him and that staff. Obviously have a lot of respect and admiration for the Nebraska football program, but you just don't know how it's going to work out in a new Big Ten, or in this new era of NIL and, who has what. And obviously he's got a lot of support there, got all the bells and whistles you could possibly want. The only thing really missing is winning games. So, be patient, Huskers fans, and, if it's like any of his other stops, eventually you're going to see the fruits of that labor.
Yeah, patience is what they've learned to be in the last 15 or 20 years. Now, Alex Golesh, we had Mike Kelly, USF AD, on with us on Monday. He was fantastic about what they're trying to do, building that new stadium and what their hopes are. And he admitted that, they haven't been ready. If USF joins a Power 5 conference and Alex Golesh is the head coach, the school will the school will negotiate a raise for at least $1 million per year of his contract.
Well, good luck, USF, and good luck, Alex Golesh, in achieving that goal. They also just got put in the AAU as well. So.
Yep. And then finally, this one with Trent Dilfer. This is one I have to read this one. Dilfer is contractually required to maintain a reasonably mature and rational attitude and keep emotions in control. Downplay defeats. He is also allowed to appear on Ryan Russillo and also his podcast and also Colin Cowherd's shows. Just kind of a random thing. Earlier this week, he basically...
Are they worried about him?
Yeah.
Are they worried about
Bill
him?
Simmons, I guess?
I guess he's not going to be on 365 Sports. That's it.
Yeah, well, oh well. Hasn't he been on the show before? Or no, he wasn't on there.
We had Dilfer on when he was at ESPN.
No, I was thinking of Golesh.
Yeah.
But I don't know why that is. Maybe contraction. I don't know what would entail, You can be on Ryan Russillo, just mentioning him specifically. I don't know why they have that, but that's interesting and, good for, I guess, fans of both that you'll likely get to hear them because there's only going to be a couple of places he'll be, cleared to appear outside of probably your regular Sports Center stop-ins. But, yeah, that's an interesting, situation down there in Birmingham as well with Trent Dilfer at the helm of the Blazers. So, yeah, good luck to him. And, college football's unique, and that includes the contracts. That includes basically everything about every facet of college athletics, and that includes the deals that these guys are signing. But not that incentives are all that crazy or, exclusive to college by any means. But there's a couple things in there that are like, all right, that's a little, unique to that guy. But basically win, keep your players out of trouble, and if you can't keep them out of trouble, just make sure it's not too extreme. And that bottom line, even if it is, you just win anyways. Urban Meyer, and just win and don't get in trouble, and that's basically all you have to do, and you'll be A-okay in the end, most likely.
One of the things Dilfer said this week was he dared anybody to get into the DMs of his players. In other words, on Twitter or whatever other DMs there might be. I don't know about that means Facebook and Instagram, whatever, but he basically is daring anybody to get into the DMs of his players to try to take them away from his program. He said he is not worried about being blackballed by other schools, the Power 5 schools, because he likes where he is in Birmingham and he's not going anywhere. Now, again, yeah, if all of a sudden Ohio State call, which again, that's hypothetical, but he's saying that. We asked Jeff Traylor that same question because he knows players have been tampered with by other schools, and he basically has contacted them directly.
Yeah, he's not doing it publicly, though. And exactly. I think that's something that every coach is probably a little bit wary of doing because, hey, if you're Jeff Traylor, are you going to be in San Antonio for the rest of your life? Probably not, right? You're going to sit there and talk bad about, let's say, Texas A&M or something, and then they, are opening up with a head coaching job in a couple of years, and you think, oh, that'd be great, but, oh, well, you're scratched off the list because you tried to rat on them to the NCAA a couple. Like, you do have to think about that, right, from his standpoint. But maybe a Trent Dilfer who's like, I'm probably never going to get offered the Ohio State job or the A&M job or whatever. And, hey, I made NFL money anyways. I'm just here to coach football and have fun. Maybe.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Maybe there's now I can't hear.
No, you talk. It just disconnected, yeah.
Now, So maybe there is something to that where he, isn't worried about getting the big job with the big chair one day, and he can just coach football and actually back up his threat of like, yeah, I'm going to expose you. And I don't know, maybe he's not saying he'll expose people, but I like that he's trying to fight back as best he can. I mean, I know it's a touchy situation for coaches because they are looking at the bigger job down the line, and maybe that impacts it if you talk. So weird rock in a hard place to be in for coaches, knowing that you want to keep your guys, but at the same time, there's just that element that it's never, not going to be some level of tampering no matter what the rules are.
And he better not be doing it himself.
Okay. 2024, they play at Arkansas. Now, I'm not calling this, but say Trent Dilfer goes 11-1 at UAB, and one of those wins is over Arkansas, and he's not worried about going anywhere else. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wonder if that tune will change.
Yeah. Here's Xavier Wolf, by the way. 365 Sports is good fun. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you very much. And then he said, what is the definition of a DM? Wrong answers only.
I think he'd probably be careful snooping around in his players' DMs too much. But, that's I guess that's across the board, right? Whatever way you can get message behind the scenes, then I'm sure they're on top of that, trying to make sure there's not some coach from another institution, Snapchatting or Instagram or Twitter or whatever the case may be. TikTok, I don't know if you do messages on TikTok. I have no idea. I think we've aged out of that in this room other than this side of the room, actually.
Yeah, on the desk we have.
We've aged. We're not in the TikTok bracket, but that's something that you got to be wary of. And, there are all those different ways to get a hold of people now. You don't have to find the phone number necessarily, or you don't have to do it one certain way. There's any number of ways. And Lord knows we've seen, without probably even realize it, every way known to man pull a player, one direction or another over these last couple of years.
By the way, that interview with Chris Pezman of Houston, I just saw this from a Twitter account that follows Houston. In his interview with us on 365 Sports, shared that a sneak peek of the new football facility will be shown during Friday's celebration on YouTube, and a reaction, of course, from a lot of the Houston fans on that. Now, before this, let's do this. We have about 4 or 5 minutes here, and then we have break, and then come back with Craig's Off the Radar. The NCAA today has told schools to ignore state laws when it comes to the NIL. The memo was obtained and published by Sports Illustrated.
This is what I thought we were talking about with our this was the NIL story.
No, this happened right before the show began. Yeah. This is NIL. He was about NLI, the national, NL, like you said, a letter of intent.
Here's the NCAA. I mean, I guess it's worth a swing to get them to do this, but considering that most of these schools are the ones who have made it known to the legislators who passed the laws that they wanted them to do this, I don't know why. For example, Texas A&M is the one that it's going to get called out the most in Texas because they have programs at each institution that specifically go against what the NCAA is trying to promote, and Texas just signed a bill that allows them to ignore those things and do what they want to do. So, I mean, Florida did as well. There's other states that have done it, but I don't understand why the NCAA thinks that Texas A&M or Texas or anybody who had these rules passed, it wasn't people like alums benevolently doing it for them out there. They did it at the behest of the universities and their big-time athletic departments and their big-time donors, where they're going to go, oh, well, no, we'll start listening to you now.
Well, while you were gone, we had Mac Rhodes on, and he said that in regards to the new Texas laws, that Baylor was not going to be following those and taking advantage of those, that A&M will. Duh, because they're the ones that set every new bar when it comes to, okay, what can we do now? Like, what more? What can we do a little bit more? Like, what rule? And so they're kind of always at the front of it, and he's not going to follow their lead. They're going to play by the regular rules and not dabble too much, I think, in the extra things that you can now do because according to Mac Rhodes, why? Do you remember why he said that? Because the NCAA rules are not permissive of the Texas rules. Like, they don't coincide or mesh. There's differences there. And so to be safe rather than sorry, he said in Baylor's case specifically, and you can understand from their point of view, having dabbled with the NCAA on some previous occasions, why they'd be a little bit more leery than, let's say, Ohio State or Michigan to play with fire. He's not going to even attempt it. He's not even going to, get close to it. Whereas A&M's going to probably like soak themselves in gasoline and then, do a front flip into it and then just, whatever. So, there is going to be, I think, different approaches to this, but according to him, they're playing by the NCAA rules because that's the NCAA rules no matter what the state says. And obviously A&M or others feel differently. And that's where the showdown is going to come into place because the states say one thing in some places and the NCAA says otherwise. And so guess what? Here in Texas or Florida or wherever, I'd imagine that, there's going to be some battles over, what can be enforced.
Do you think this is even a blip on the radar at A&M in Texas?
No. But like I said, they're like, they'll pour gasoline over their heads and go roll in the fire. They're not scared of, getting burnt at all. But, I mean, as far as a Baylor goes, they don't have hundreds of millions of dollars just waiting in the wings at a moment's notice to, or a bunch. I mean, they've got lawyers, but I don't know that they have them on retainer for things like this.
Lawyers,
I know. But to start battling this, they're not equipped the same way. So, different strokes for different folks. Maybe they miss out on some opportunities by not being more aggressive like some other schools, or maybe they do avoid getting themselves into some trouble. Don't really know. And that's, again, something that we'll have to see over time.
If you, I'll just give the example of the state of Florida. Ron DeSantis signed the bill, and he had coaches and ADs and players all up there for the photo op with him doing this on the, we don't care about your rules, NCAA thing. And he had them all up there. So if the schools wanted it, why are those schools going to stop doing it if the governor himself invited you to the party when they changed the rule?
Here's one of the things about the collectives that the NCAA or others get concerned with. In exchange for NIL collective money, for example, a fundraising arm of the Longhorn Foundation plans to offer a point system for priority tickets to donors based on how much they contribute to the Texas One Fund Collective. It's no different. Baylor has the Bear Foundation, where they have, I'm sure, a point system of what you donate based on what you get when it comes to priorities for tickets and suites and whatever else. But this would be for the NIL, which, of course, we know goes to the student athletes. This is just another, just something else
but
with what's going on.
As Ross Dellinger pointed out because there's a lot more to it than just hey, we're not going to do this, or hey, we're going to do that, what is the NCAA, guys? It's the schools. So, if you don't want the rules, then create your different set of rules. And does that mean you break away from the NCAA? I think that's possibly where the answer lies, is you get tired of how they're, doing everything and their processes and their lack of, power or whatever the case may be. I think it's another one of those red flags that goes up that says, all right, could this be another crack in the shell of the NCAA that, starts to grow and, fester a little bit? And, is this a situation where, somebody is playing by a different rule or a different, body as others stick around and still, play under the NCAA umbrella? Is that where we're headed as far as this goes? Because it does feel like there's this battle that's brewing, at least right now, with the NCAA and their power and what they can legislate versus some schools who are really starting to, we dare you to do something, or we're not going to listen. We're not going to play by that rule. We're going to do it this way because the state of Florida says so. And you don't like it? Well, too bad. Let's fight. I mean, that's all this is it's all just bubbling up for a showdown. And so, that's very interesting that, but not surprising that we're headed that direction, because with all the different states making their individual rules, you knew that something like this was eventually going to occur. And we've all been barking about having broad legislation and everybody playing by the same book. Well, they're trying to do that by saying don't adhere to your individual state laws, but what's the first thing everybody reacts with? You can't tell us what to do. So, it remains to be seen. How are they going to enforce this? That's what we need to see, because the other part of it is you can bark, and we've certainly seen them bark, but it's is it the dog that barks and as soon as you challenge it, it just shuts up and runs the other direction, or is it the dog that's barking and you challenge it and it bites you, on the knee?
It goes right at your neck. Takes you down.
And the NCAA most of the time has been the dog that barks and they challenge it, and it runs the other direction and hightails it. So do they have some more bite this time, some more teeth? That's what I think schools are going to find out.
I would think the combination of Texas and Texas A&M look at this and go, okay, come on.
Sure.
And then move on. All right, coming up next, Craig Smoak, off the radar. By the way, there's a story, we'll get to it today or tomorrow. Shaka Smart at Marquette, a very Dave Aranda type philosophy that did not quite work for Aranda last year, but we'll discuss that at some point, hopefully today. We're not done. And Sam Bradshaw today at just after 5 with an incredible graphics presentation that is way above my head, but you want to watch it because we'll all learn from it on TV, values, segments, everything, all the conferences. This is 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, they are the people that you can count on for a great vehicle and great customer service, great prices. Everything is great over at Richard Carr, no matter what you're looking to do. I myself have not bought a car over there just yet. I had bought one previously to the relationship with Donnie and the good folks over at Richard Carr, but I have had it over there to get body work done after a couple of incidents, and they took care of me, and I will be going back. Hopefully not in the near future. That means something else has to get fixed, and quite frankly, I don't really want to do that. But if I have to for some reason, then I know where I'm going, and I know that I can count on the great people over at Richard Carr and their customer service department, which is always standing by to keep you on the road, whether you're looking to get an oil change or your tires fixed up, or like me, you've got a hit-and-run type of more of a, what would you call it, an aggressive driving situation. Somebody runs into you purposely and scratches up the side of your car. You need the paint job. You need the dents taken out. They can take care of that as well. When it comes to their customer service department, go to richardcarr.com. You can see their service specials and also set an appointment for quick and reliable service. But if you are in the market for a new or pre-owned vehicle, they've got both options readily available. On the new side of things, dozens of Sierra trucks on the lot. Qualified buyers can save $3,000 on the 2023 Sierra SLT or SLE 1500s. You can also get 2.9% financing on the 2023 GMC Sierra base models. They'll have more information, of course, if you contact them over at the dealership, but also have the luxury SUV without the luxury price and the Buick lineup of SUVs, from the 2023 Encores to the Envisions to the Enclaves. Qualified buyers can get low financing and save $2,500 on Enclave Premiums, $3,500 on Enclave Avenires from the Buick lineup. And also a lot full of pre-owned cars and trucks if you're not looking to go the new route. Many of those vehicles are under $20,000. They're affordable, they're thoroughly inspected, and they're ready to finance for almost any credit rating. So no matter what you're looking to do, check out the dealership that's been in business for over 24 years in Central Texas and has built a reputation during that time as the people that you can count on. Run by proud Central Texans. Log on to richardcarr.com today. See their service specials. See their pre-owned vehicle specials. See the pricing on the new vehicles. Check all that out over at richardcarr.com today, or call them now or go see them now off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit.
Joined by Samantha Duvall, TexasBeefHouse.com, Director of Marketing. 4th of July, it's coming up. We've been through Father's Day, Memorial Day before that, and now you have 4th of July. What are a couple of specials, or maybe when people call, they can focus on the 4th of July weekend?
So we just got a new shipment of inventory in, so we are stocked back up on our brisket. We're stocked back up on our ribeyes. Of course, we've got hamburger patties, jalapeno and cheese patties. Those are one of our biggest sellers. Also put together what we call the grilling package, and it's a package that gives you sirloin, filet, hamburger package, regular patties, jalapeno and cheese patties, New York strip, and some of our Wagyu garlic links. They're fully cooked. You just throw them on the grill or put them in the oven.
It's pretty amazing, the growth of the business. TexasBeefHouse.com, just outside of Tylerman White House. Aaron Duvall, the owner, and we're talking to Samantha. To just be a part of this company and watch it grow, how impressed have you been in just these recent months or in the last year or so?
It's actually been pretty awesome watching us grow the last year. We started this company almost 6 years ago, and just by word of mouth, it has blown up our last year. We're now shipping to all the lower 48 states. We ship Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. We also do local deliveries in our area within a 20-mile radius, and we're part of our farmers market every Saturday here.
Where is the best beef in Texas? Your house. When you order from Texas Beef House, unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu from our pasture to your plate. TexasBeefHouse.com.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses. When it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why we take the time to understand your needs. Knowing you, that's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott in Conroe at 936-756-7717. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Price right, day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
Boozers is the wedding ring store and more. If you're ready to get engaged or already married and want to upgrade your wife's ring for a special anniversary, Boozers is the place to go. With the largest selection of premier quality diamond engagement rings and wedding rings in Central Texas. They have 7 cases with over 300 styles of rings from top designers like Natalie Kay. Choose from yellow, white, or rose gold, plus beautiful top quality loose diamonds. With an in-house jeweler, they can also custom make anything you want. Bring in a picture or drawing and let Boozers create your one-of-a-kind pendant or ring. They can even use some of your old gold and diamond jewelry to create something new. At Boozers, you'll find a great selection of quality timepieces, and Boozers is the place for expert watch maintenance and repairs too. They specialize in expert Rolex watch repair for fine jewelry, watches, custom work, and more. Go to Boozers on Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Boozers, the wedding ring store and more.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
This is Craig Smoak's Off the Radar, presented by Alliance Bank. They take pride in making banking easy. AllianceBankTexas.com.
All right, welcome into 365 Sports Off the Radar. Segments on Tuesdays and Thursdays that we might need to cancel for a majority of the rest of the summer because headlines-wise, news-wise, we have reached that point, guys. I don't know if y'all have noticed, but the slow time, I think we've hit it. I think we've hit it with the end of college baseball. It's all college sports are done now. You've got just Major League Baseball. There's no NBA draft. There's Summer League, but that's very niche for, your hardcore NBA fans. But beyond that, I might be reading some Astros box scores here in a couple of weeks for Off the Radar. But I do have a couple of things, I guess, to get to from around the world of sports today. For one, the LSU Florida College World Series viewership is in, and it was a pretty good news if you are an SEC fan that, likes to brag about various milestones. Certainly if you're an LSU fan, you get to double brag because you were a part of the actual game itself and a part of the great ratings. And, oh, yeah, you also got to hoist that national championship trophy. But wanted to double back and make sure I got the numbers right because there was a correction on this. Game 3 for LSU and Florida that saw the Tigers win the national championship garnered when all was put together, because I think the caveat initially was like, oh, well, this didn't include streaming. You know how that goes. So, like, I think with all things put together, 3.56 million viewers for LSU and Florida in baseball, game number 3.
Damn, that's a big football number.
That was the highest of the series. They had 2.5+ million in game number 1 that LSU won. Game 2, the Florida victory to push it to 3 games. Game 2 saw the Gators win, get 2.196 million, so a little bit of a dip, but then 1.2 million tuned back in for game number 3, or an extra 1.2 million tuned back in for game number 3. Top telecast of the day on broadcast and cable overall. So, yeah, very healthy number for LSU and Florida in baseball. And, you know, we're just talking about the NCAA situation, and I saw, like, there's actually some great conversations happening about, well, just don't listen to their rules. And, you know, then somebody says, well, it's a voluntary organization, so if you choose to be a part of it, you have to play by their rules. And, like, that opens up some really great conversations, because it's not just like, well, we're not going to do that and we're going to break away. Like, you know, forming your own entire league takes some like some foundation and takes some things to put together. You just don't do that overnight. But as we just look, no matter where you look in any corner of college sports right now, there's change afoot or there's change brewing. And, you know, with a healthy number like this, it makes you wonder, you know, about how lucrative maybe the future of baseball could be at the college level, at least when it comes to, let's say, the SEC, for example, given their tremendous success here as of late. But, yeah, I mean, you got to, as a college baseball fan or a college athletics fan, look at that number and go, okay, hell yeah, 3+ million for the College World Series? We'll take that any day.
Well, and look, the women's basketball Final Four had a good number. The College World Series did. Networks, I mean, part of it might be just promotional budget overall, where – you know, you got to push what you got to push, but I think they'd be better served to just promote what they have, especially if you've lost, you know, when you lose college basketball at the beginning of April, you should maybe push baseball a little bit more, especially on those channels. If you're ESPN, like the SEC and the ACC.
I know what you're saying. I don't watch much college baseball until the College World Series.
Most people don't.
Yeah. Now, I'm not saying that because there's diehards, especially in certain conferences, especially maybe in the South or the West Coast, or I'm including Texas when I say the South. But it's there. I'll watch a game, but a lot of times it's also hard to find, which then maybe that opens the door up if they make it more available.
I would also say that one of the things that probably helped in this particular one, look, the Major League Baseball draft's coming up next week, right? And between LSU and Florida, that might be like most of the first 6 rounds.
Well, Cruz, Garrett, it's going to be Skeens will be like in the top 3, right?
Yeah, Skeens, Cruz, and then that number 36 from Florida. Those are the top 3 for sure.
What about the pitcher from Wake Forest? Is he a part of that conversation, or is he draft eligible?
That's a Levi question.
Yeah.
But Levi, I don't know if you saw this column because it was while you were in Europe, but ESPN did a column that if you took LSU's draft slotting, their money would be more than like 4 teams have in their system because of how good they are. And look, they're fun to watch. I just think part of it, and I say that because sometimes you don't know. Baseball draft is hard to follow because, all right, we're going to draft this kid from Modesto, California high school. And like, well, I've never heard of him. Yep. And I may not see him for 7 years play for my team. So you don't know. But I do think that part of that goes hand in hand. I think they'd be well to do it. Plus, I think we all need to celebrate LSU doing God's work.
Beating Florida.
Yeah. Man, did y'all see the viral tweet about Florida's baseball coach and the backstory of Okay, well, look at that. Have you seen that, Garrett? Have y'all seen that? Okay. Who was that? It was like Jack from Barstool, I think. Jack McGuire or something put a tweet up yesterday about learning about the backstory to Florida's baseball coach. And it's just like, you talk about like super interesting, and you're like, how did I not know this already? Like, what is this just now popping up on my screen? Just look it up. But
he always looks like he has something that's bothering him. Now, he's a hell of a coach, but he always looks like he was in a very bad mood.
Well, they were definitely in a bad mood in Gainesville last night, losing that series. And, I didn't mean to imply that I think college baseball can go be like some multi-billion-dollar business or anything like that. But I do think that there's some juice to it, and every year you kind of feel that. And same thing with basketball in March on the women's side. And, I don't know, they don't really feel like they ever quite capture it. And I do think a big part of it, too, is the LSU factor. I mean, you're talking about a nutty fan base in the, nicest way I can say that just goes at a level that a lot of others just choose not to go or just can't go or refuse to go. And so the massive amount of support that they get on, when it comes to television eyeballs or in attendance, it's not matched by many. And that brought an extra element to it as well. So you had over 8 million people watching the College World Series, and you also had nearly 25,000 fans attending over the 25,000 fans, nearly the average for the 16 games, a total of 392,946 folks made their way to Omaha to watch the tournament games over the past couple weeks, the most ever during the 73-year history of the event in Omaha. So big TV ratings, big turnout. And can't forget either that there was also a little matter of Jell-O shots that were involved. Speaking of records, the Jell-O shot challenge.
Despicable.
One of the great ideas in marketing, I think, in American sports here. It's got attention for a while now, but I just feel like in the last couple, 3-4 years maybe, it's really become kind of a side thing that you really sort of pay attention to, or maybe sickos like me do. But there is a final tally when it comes to the Jell-O shot challenge. $5 a piece at Rocco's up there in Omaha. And LSU, 68,888 Jell-O shots were bought over the course of their time in Omaha. 68,000 plus Jell-O shots. Now, obviously, this wasn't 30,000 people having two apiece. This was the Raising Cane's guy buying $6,000 of shots and saying divvy it up and all that. But no matter, 68,000,
$340,000 approximately
from LSU fans.
Yeah.
In the Jell-O shot challenge, the runner-up was Wake Forest with 7,622 Jell-O shots. TCU right behind at 7,070. And then you had, Florida a little over 4,000. Oral Roberts a little over 3,000. Tennessee was really disappointing. Man. I know they weren't there long, but 2,200 for them. And then you had Virginia and Stanford less than 1,000, although Stanford did edge out Virginia. So Virginia, you are Party Pooper University in Omaha this past couple weeks. But 872 for the Cavs was the low. That is only 68,000 short of the LSU total over that time period. So new records and lots of money.
Jell-O shots always come back to hit you.
Yeah.
They're going to win.
They can.
They're going to win. Yeah.
They can.
I never was real thrilled with the taste of them, but I've experienced a handful of them.
Yeah, the taste of vodka or Everclear or whatever else you choose to put in there.
Cherry Jell-O and vodka.
It tastes like cherry-flavored vodka or Everclear is what it tastes like.
Golf tournament, I was at the hole with some friends of mine doing jokes because that's what the group wanted us to do. The hole right next to us was way more popular because they had Jell-O shots.
Yeah.
And I got pictures from the end of the day of what was happening between the two holes there at Cottonwood Creek. And believe me, it was moving to the par 5 was not the best thing to do right after doing 4 Jell-O shots on the hole before it.
No.
Can imagine. So, just a lot of fun from the College World Series this past week. Congrats to LSU. I got to go the full 3 games, so that was fun just to have one extra game to be able to chew on before saying goodbye for 2023. And then the Jell-O shot side story was a lot of fun as well. So congrats to the Tigers who swept the podium, so to speak, when it comes to the Jell-O shot challenge and the national championship. Meanwhile, a notable Baylor baseball transfer and just baseball transfer in general when it comes to all the activity that's now going on with the season wrapped up. But Big 12 freshman All-American Colby Branch, who announced a week ago that he would be entering the transfer portal despite some assurances that, no, he's going to be around. They're planning on him being around. And then suddenly it was, nope, he's actually going to enter the portal. Well, you see there on your screens, he is headed to play for the Georgia Bulldogs. Go Dogs, excited to play in Athens, super thankful at Baseball UGA. So there's the decision by Colby Branch that we were wondering about, and I had not heard anything for a few days, and I was starting to wonder, and then all of a sudden that popped out during the podcast this morning. So I looked it up, and Grayson had a very interesting reaction because he's like, I thought he said he wanted to go somewhere and win. And if you look at it, Georgia was next to last in their own division this past season. I mean, they were barely above 500. I think they were under 500 in SEC play by a good amount. And the story there is, well, I'm sure there's probably some NIL accompaniment here. I'm sure there's probably some, personal relationships, but Georgia's also changing coaches, and who's coming in? Well, it's LSU's Wes Johnson is their new coach, LSU's pitching coach, now the man in charge of the Dogs. So he picks up Colby Branch, and that is a big get for them, and obviously a big loss for Baylor. Paul, you missed that, but not good news for Mitch Thompson and company as they try to rebuild this thing.
No, and it's baseball is going to be one of the weirder ones to see how much people start funneling NIL dollars there, and then
I think you're seeing in the SEC quite a bit already.
And if you're a school like Baylor that already is up against it when it comes to total tuition dollars and NIL anyway, it's going to be hard for Mitch. I mean, I know that all the baseball coaches are for the deregulation of your scholarship caps. If you want to give full scholarships to 25 people, as long as you match it Title IX-wise across the board, that's the rule that they want to pass, but it's not there yet. So, schools like Baylor are going to be up against it because their tuition's more expensive. And if you can get NIL money on top of going to a state like Georgia, which if you qualify for certain academic things will pay for half your stuff anyway, then it's almost a no-brainer for some kids.
It's one of those where it doesn't really pay to be a private school, right?
Yeah.
Because it works against them. And the high tuition really works against you. So, Colby Branch now headed to Georgia, and the conference that's pretty rich already gets a little bit richer with some more talent and a nice pickup there early on for Wes Johnson. All right, just two more notes. There's so many recruiting stories around. Like, it feels pointless to mention, like, one guy because there's 1,000 other guys that have all made their types of decisions. But I did want to make mention, because I'm not sure if y'all brought it up earlier, but Latrell McCutcheon, that's just a name that I think people who have followed recruiting for a little while probably can remember to some extent. But he announced that he is going to be heading to the University of Houston after spending time at both USC most recently and prior to that, Oklahoma. He was a guy that moved over eventually with Lincoln Riley from OU, and now on his third school. Was just a sophomore last year, but he'll be heading to the Big 12 and playing for Houston, and I remember him being kind of a coveted recruit not that long ago. So nice pickup for the Cougars, and again, there's just so many stories, but that one popped out to me because I've just been following his name, and there's been a lot of transfer talk surrounding him during the course of his career. So former four-star guy who, like I said, was at OU and then USC and now headed to the H. And then finally, did you watch much of the match, the big golf outing with Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers and Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes?
No,
did you watch much of that?
I have, maybe, because whenever that's been in the past, I might have been traveling, so I may have watched it because there was nothing else really, but I did not. Is that was recently?
I'm just asking if you watched it.
Oh, I thought it happened last night, and I forgot.
No.
I've watched it.
Did you watch that one, or did you watch the previous,
I did.
with Tiger?
I did.
You watched the match?
I did.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's been pretty successful, and I guess successful enough to where they're continuing, a series of some sort. And this time around, it will once again feature Patrick Mahomes, but a little bit of a different pairing this time around. Instead of it being he and Josh Allen versus Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady, it will now be Patrick Mahomes joined by his Chiefs teammate and his buddy Travis Kelce, and they will be taking on the Splash Brothers. Steph Curry and Klay Thompson will be the other duo. The match will take place Thursday, Wynn Golf Club in Las Vegas. So, there's a little something extracurricular summer event for you to check out as the sports calendar starts to wind down a little bit. But, Mahomes and Kelce versus – and do they have a Splash Brothers type of nickname up there in Kansas City? I don't know.
Not sure.
Because Splash Brothers is pretty cool, and Kelsey Mahomes is enough of a parent that you think that they could probably garner a nickname at this point. But regardless, the Super Bowl champs, how about that? And one of the best combinations in NFL history. How about that? Matching up with the Splash Brothers as part of the latest version of the match. So that, again, taking place Thursday in Las Vegas. And there's a few things off the radar.
All right, Paul, you want me to share that one? Because it's awful news. I covered him when he was in high school at Texas High. He played at Arkansas. He was in the NFL. Numerous reports that former Arkansas quarterback Ryan Mallett, he's been a Whitehall high school football coach, drowned in Florida. He was 35 years old. I've got goosebumps with that. I would do that with most anybody. This story is awful, but I covered him in high school, interviewed him in high school. He won a state championship at Texas High, and it sucks that this story has to be true, but it is. And so thank you, Craig, for Off the Radar and that story, former college football player at Arkansas. This is 365 Sports. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers, hell, Garrett, go to the break.
It's time for the 4th of July sales event at Allen Samuels in Waco. And just like the weather, the deals couldn't be hotter. Save big on Ram trucks. Now offering 10% off MSRP and a new 2023 Ram 1500 Lone Star Crew Cab. That's right. Or get 2.9% for 72 months. The choice is yours. Plus an extra $500 bonus cash to first responders. Allen Samuels in Waco is the place to shop Ram trucks. Visit today or browse online at allensamuelsdcj.com.
Come by. Let's be friends. Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Baylor Scott and White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott and White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon-wrapped fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes. Cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links. Fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef, and chicken fajitas, and always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
When we moved to Texas, we were like fish out of water. We didn't know anyone in our neighborhood until our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent came to the house. She was so helpful and reassuring, a friendly face with that Texan hospitality I'd heard about. When we purchased a Texas Farm Bureau insurance policy, we knew we were making the right choice. We knew our family would be protected.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Ben Erlinson, who'll navigate you through today's financial climate. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
So Sam Bradshaw, he puts together these previews of Baylor football opponents, but he also has been unbelievable. He and Brian Etheridge on SicEm365.com have been unbelievable about trying to put together and piece together knowledge on where are the availabilities for college football, for television, for streaming, and much more. Very complicated, and we're gonna bring him on, and then we have some graphics that we'll try to go through. And Sam, thank you for your time, and Craig, Paul, and Smokey with you. First of all, how much exposure can we expect from conference TV deals was the title of this particular piece. What is it trying to find out?
Thanks for having me on. And as mentioned before, these deals get pretty complex for the average fan because most fans are just looking at it from the perspective of my team, what channel are they on? Oh, I need to go to this channel. So they're not really looking at the landscape overall, but the landscape overall really determines a lot in terms of what TV deals are there to be made and how that impacts realignment and how that impacts your league's brand. How available are those games to a wide swath of audiences? So for here, you're really looking at what percentage of your games are reaching what portions of the country, and then do you have opportunities with television windows that would be expected to garner big viewership if you have a big matchup. Those were the two main thrusts of what we were looking at. And it was mainly in response to a lot of different numbers being thrown around out of context. So in the interest of just kind of getting an apples to apples comparison, we took a look at everybody.
All right. You have sent Paul and Paul to Garrett graphics. So we're going to put the graphic up and we'll let you explain each one of them. I'm not sure if the graphics themselves have any specific title.
Yeah, no, he gave us an order here. So here on the first one he sent, 2022 exposure by channel distribution. Sam, break this one down for us.
At the bottom of each of those particular graphics or graphs, actually, are the conferences, by the way. So there's that at the bottom.
Yeah, what we're looking at here is each portion of the stacked bar chart represents the percentage of games that are on a network that has typical kind of reach. So at the very top in the darkest green, you got ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox. Those are your over-the-air stations. They're on 120 million households plus. Then the next rung down is your ESPN, ESPN2, FS1. They're on about 90% of your cable multi-channel stations nationwide. That's about as good as cable distribution gets. The next rung down is around 2/3. That's your CBS Sports Network, NFL Network, SEC Network, Big Ten Network, and FS2. And then after that, the next rung after that is around 50%. That's ESPNU. That is ACC Network. And then beyond that, you've got a little bit of a clutter. You've got networks like Longhorn Network or BYU TV that are really available for that fan base, but aren't really national players. You've got regional TV and syndication and streaming. And for instance, the bigger streaming outlets that you've seen active with college football, whether it be Peacock or the rumors of Apple getting involved with the Pac-12 or ESPN Plus, those are going to be kind of in that 20 million subscriber range. And then at the very bottom, you've got networks that are around 20% of the multi-channel universe in terms of subscriber count. And that's the Pac-12 that's coming in at under 15 million subscribers. So just to try and get an idea of what percentage of your home game inventory, the inventory controlled by a league's television contract, is getting what kind of visibility nationally. And what we can tell from here is that obviously the SEC and Big Ten have just giant visibility based off what they've done with their own networks, but also based off what they get from the over-the-air and cable networks. And then the Big 12 and ACC are kind of neck and neck for third, depending on what you make of the ACC network or what you make of their regional syndication deal versus the Big 12 having a slightly higher percentage on streaming, but also having a slightly higher percentage of games that made it to Fox, NBC, CBS, for instance. Then you have the Pac-12 with incredible visibility on the top half of their inventory, but not much on the bottom. And so on and so forth. I also included BYU and Notre Dame and averages of P5 conferences and averages of all FBS conferences.
All right, so that's 2022 exposure based on the distribution. All right, what is next? What do we have next, Paul?
It's where the SEC, Big 10, Big 12, and ACC project to be, since they all currently have television deals. So you can see here, so Sam, go into this one right here across the map about where the distribution lies on streaming and over the air.
Right. The Big Ten actually has some streaming this go around because they've got I think 8 games to Peacock, but where they're really killing it is that they've got between 14 and 16 games on each of CBS, NBC, and Fox. And then they'll have a certain amount of games on FS1. And then they've got all those games on Big Ten Network. They've got about as good a visibility as anybody not named Notre Dame. And then the SEC is going to be largely similar to what they've had before. They'll probably get a couple more games on ESPN2, ESPN, ESPNU, simply due to inventory changes based off the contracts ESPN's going to have. And they're effectively swapping out ABC and CBS because ABC took over those rights as part of the recent deal they have. And for the Big 12, I did kind of an estimate on what I thought made sense in terms of what games make sense to be potentially picked up. How many do I think is going to be streaming? I have them doing a little bit more streaming than they've done before. Typically, it's been around 27 to 29% streaming. I have them right at 30% because it's typically been just under 2 games per school. And I've moved them up to a full 2 games. But the absolute maximum I could see ESPN have a business case for would be 33% streaming because I don't believe ESPN is going to pay more per school than Fox is and broadcast fewer than Fox's 26 games, for instance. I don't see how they make that money up. And then from there, the ACC is largely unchanged until they can get those Raycom sub-license games back later in the decade. And at that point, it depends on what that deal looks like. And then, of course, Notre Dame is likely figures to have a pretty similar deal to what they have now whenever they re-up.
Yeah, they'll have, 2 games on Peacock or something like that?
I think their breakdown is 6 on NBC and 1 on Peacock. Yeah. But, yeah, they're going to be overwhelming network TV and then some streaming element, most likely.
All right, I'm going to ask you a question only because go back to that last graphic, Garrett, if you don't mind. So you're discussing that the Big 12 is around 30% streaming. What is the highest number that a conference would have normally with streaming?
Well, Power 5 or Group of 5 is a big distinction here because with the Group of 5, like the Sun Belt and Conference USA figure to be in the 70% of streaming, for instance. And the Americans in the high 30%. It really depends on the deal you're striking. But then again, you've also, if you go to the next graphic, the Pac-12 does not have a deal, but there's a lot of rumors that Apple is going to have a major part to play in that. I've heard rumors of all streaming. I've heard rumors of streaming and sub-licensing as the most probable aspects. And again, these are negotiations. They can turn on a dime. Somebody could report today accurately that ESPN and Fox don't want to do a deal, and tomorrow, if the prices and the market changes make sense, they could turn around and do something. But for the purposes of this, I went with the 2 scenarios that I've heard tossed around the most credibly recently, which is the Pac-12 doing a streaming deal or the Pac-12 doing a streaming deal that has a sub-license component to it where they sell a certain number of games to a linear broadcaster. So on the left, you see an example of what their deal was in 2022. Then you have kind of what it would be if they had a full streaming deal and they dedicated 30 games, which is 3 for the remaining schools, which is pro rata what they had in 2022. on the Pac-12 network. Then from there, if they gave 28 games in a sub-license deal to like an ESPN or somebody with really good visibility, that's what it would look like. But it leaves very limited amounts of inventory for the streamer to work with, or you have to really reduce the inventory for the Pac-12 network, which is why there's probably a good case for the farthest right column where they add 2 teams like an SMU or San Diego State so that they have 13 more games to play with. So they have those 13 games that they can sell.
All right, so this graphic, leave it up, Garrett, if you don't mind. Future Pac-12 exposure possibilities. There's 4 columns. The column on the left is what they have been doing?
Yes.
The second column is what is being reported, that is the heavily streaming with it being sub-licensed?
No, all streaming is second.
Also, okay. Well, there's red and there's pink.
Yeah.
The pink is the streaming, but for the purposes of this projection, I left a certain percentage of inventory allocated to the Pac-12 network.
Okay.
Because I have no idea if they contractually can shut that down or if they have costs they still have to recoup. I have no idea what their flexibility on shutting that down is. So I reduced their inventory from the 36 or 37 they've had in recent years to 30 because they lost 2 schools. And I used that to project everything else.
Yeah, Clint Moses, who's I think Oregon State guy, Pac Network visibility numbers are horrible. On streaming, the numbers will go up.
Yeah, that's a safe bet. You're talking about a network that has less than 50 million subscribers versus streaming services that have subscriber counts in the 20 million range. So that's 20 to 25 million range, I should say. That's probably a safe bet that would get more visibility than they've got before, but it depends on if they're able to move that inventory from the Pac-12 network.
Okay, so
because if you look here, a lot of that inventory, if they're just keeping the Pac-12 network and then simply streaming some of the inventory that was getting ESPN or FS1 or ABC or Fox, that would be a step back.
Okay. All right, so the next graphic.
All right, this would be, Sam, so this is if you're basing it on the last 3 years average, I guess 3 of the last 4 with 2020 and how odd that was taken out, because that's, I'm sure, just a number that doesn't make sense because it's not all the same across the board. This is the recent year averages on the exposure that they would get if everything was the same, right?
Correct. That is saying out of all the games that you had broadcast, which television windows in the data that I've got going back over a decade, the middle value, the median value is over 2 million. So for Saturday ABC primetime, that's easily over 2 million. But for instance, Saturday ESPNU primetime is nowhere near that. That would not be included here. And the reason this is important is this is where your really big viewership gains largely come from. Over the last few years, I forget the exact number of years I have for this stat, but I think it's like the last 3 or 4 years that were not COVID. The number of games that got 4 million or more viewers that did not come from a window like this, there were 2 of them. And one of them was in 0 week. And all of them used major brands like Florida, Miami, Penn State, and I forget who the final team was, but it's very rare and it takes quite a matchup to overcome that without these. So these are very important to your overall visibility to a lot of casual fans.
All right, so the yellow bar is the is what, Paul? The SEC, and that doesn't surprise anybody. The blue bar is the Big Ten. The red is the Big 12. The green, the Pac-12, and then the ACC is the light blue, which is about not much difference between those 3, and then it drops considerably with American Conference, and then Notre Dame
on their own.
And then the purple is the Mountain West. Okay. Any other graphics, Garrett?
Yeah, this one, Sam, I think is the most interesting. So if you applied your projection to what the Pac-12 would be, their number drops precipitously.
Right. And what we see is the Big Ten, based off getting a lot of those CBS and NBC and Fox windows, goes up a decent amount. The SEC gets a few more games just off of the expansion with Texas and Oklahoma. they'll probably add 14 games to the SEC inventory. ESPN Plus and SEC Network contractual minimums will probably cut off about half of that. But then from there, the Big 12 figures to be the beneficiary because ESPN is down about 10 games in inventory among the Power 5 level because they lost 27 games from the Big 10. They lost 5 from BYU. And while they gained about 22 from the SEC, that's still down 10 games before you look at whether or not they retain the Pac-12, where for noon, afternoon, and primetime windows, I think the Pac-12 averaged around 9 of them a year on ABC, ESPN networks. And, that's not necessarily your biggest games, but there's at least a couple of those windows in there from the Pac-12. And then on Fox, if the Big Ten is contractually obligated to give their over-the-air games in the noontime slot to Fox, in the afternoon time slot to CBS, and in the primetime time slot to NBC, there's a lot of Fox afternoon and primetime games for the Big 12 or any other conferences they contract with to potentially fill. I gave them only about half of what I consider that availability to be. And the Big 12 has a lot of upside here. The ACC is going to get maybe a little bit more of those big windows just with ESPN being down some inventory. But then after that, the Pac-12 really takes it on the chin here unless they can get one of those major players, whether it be ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox, or ESPN back into the fold, because that's where a lot of these big windows come from. And if they stay out, it's going to be a limited amount of opportunity for those big viewership games.
Steve Moser, these graphs are good. Get Mr. Bradshaw some hair goop, and he's ready for the sports talk show circuit. I don't know what the hell.
Sam's usually well coiffed when I see him.
He is. He absolutely is. I'll read this one, but he didn't follow up on it. I asked him to. Connor, who is without question a fan of the Pac-12, but that's fine. At least he made it a few slides in before I raised an eyebrow, and I asked Connor to follow up on that. I have not seen him. Has he looked at the valuation of Apple buying the Pac-12 network? That was his follow-up question.
I have not looked at the valuation of Apple buying the Pac-12 network. I understand that in hypotheticals, they might be able to do that. I have no idea what price that would cost. I have no idea what it's worth. They could buy a lot of the assets that the Pac-12 network has, but a lot of those technology assets, how current are they? It gets into how much does it cost versus buying new? What's the expected life? There's a lot of things that go into it. And then, much like I hinted at when I was doing my projections, I have no idea what kind of obligations the Pac-12 still has to fill before selling it would potentially be a good idea or a bad idea. I have no idea what their books look like in that regard. So from there's possibility, but it's definitely not something that I feel comfortable speculating on because I don't know enough of the inputs.
Well, wouldn't it also? It would depend on what new distribution they got after they bought it, right?
Right. It's not only what are you buying, but how are you going to be able to leverage it in a way that gets you a return?
Well, here's a couple of responses. It would save Apple and the Pac on production, in my opinion. Fiber optics, cables, and no trucks on site, all the Bay Area Production Center. And then, of course, there's the Stanford alumni and Cal alumni that make up most of the Apple employees. Larry Pilgrim, Pac-12 updated software, their hardware is top-notch. And you hear about this Pac-12 network as kind of at times an albatross, right, because of the distribution issues. But thanks to the responses in the chat room, too. Is that it? Is there any other, no other grab? Sam, I don't know how you do it. Paxton, by the way, you're going to fail this segment because you haven't been paying attention. And Japhus, I hope I get that right, has the lead student because he was giving the bulging eyeballs because he was actually reading and paying attention. So, Paxton, you are in the Sam Bradshaw dog.
You wrote his name on the board? He has to stay after school?
Yeah,
Paxton?
No, absolutely. Yeah. Connor Johnson, shout out, Sam. So that's another one from the chat room. Great show as always. Hey, Sam, thank you very much for reaching out with all that information. And it will be on Sikkim 360. It is on Sikkim365.com in the premium section where you can really get even more. And Sam responds to a lot of the questions. I think Brian's in there as well with that too. And we appreciate you doing what you do. Thanks for your time.
Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you. That's Sam Bradshaw, Baylor_S11. I would do that with crayons. That would keep me occupied. That would absolutely keep me occupied.
You think he'd just give you a blank one and say, "Tell me what colors you want"?
Yeah, no. I would want red. I always want red and blue, maybe purple. Paxton, what? Paul Catalina, he just cussed you out. Paxton, I failed. All right, Connor, again, thanks to shout out to Sam Bradshaw. Appreciate the follow-up questions because that's important for you to ask the questions so we could possibly as well get the answers back to you. Japhus, I will take my A+ and run. Thank you, Japhus Cavill. All right, when we come back, Hall of Fame columnist John McLean, and this is 365 Sports. Don Humidor and Coffee Beans in the Town West Shopping Center in between Richland Drive and also Valley Mills in Waco. I was there, and I go by there about once a week, go by and talk to Cheyenne, Ashley, and Carol. And they are really good at what they know because the product they have when it comes to CBD products, when it comes to THC products, and also they have ground coffee, and you can grind the coffee right there in front of you, or they will for you when you go in to buy it, or you can take it home and do that yourself. But they have the mother load. It's the 48-foot walk-in humidor. I walked in there. It was on Saturday, early afternoon, and there were a couple of the guys in there. Cheyenne was there. Ashley was there, and they were picking out cigars, asking questions, and both of them answered every one of them about the history of the cigar, where it's from, what is the brand, what's it related to, what is the smoke, what is the flavor, so to speak, or even kind of the aroma. They're amazing, Cheyenne, Ashley, and Carol. I go in there to get my cigars whenever. It could be Ashton and Macanudo one time. It could be Rocky Patel and possibly La Fontana another time. And then there's always something that I like to pick up just as something different when I play a round of golf on the weekend. It's Don Humidor and Coffee Beans in the Town West Shopping Center in between Richland Drive and Valley Mills in Waco.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses. When it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why we take the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott in Conroe at 936-756-7717. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
A Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and Equal Housing Lender.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
Welcome back to 365 Sports. It's time for our weekly segment with NFL Hall of Fame columnist John McLean. Brought to you by Pioneer Steel and Pipe, where customer service is their main focus, and best in metal, steel, and pipe for large or small projects, with 2 locations in Waco and Bryan. Family owned and operated since 1943. Read John's work at sportsradio610.com.
John McLean, Hall of Fame columnist, with us Tuesdays in the second half of the 5 o'clock hour. John, hate to bring up a sad story to open up with. We just got the news. I covered Ryan Mallett when he was at Texas High back in the early parts of the 2000s. An unbelievable player, Arkansas, NFL, played for a long time in the NFL. In the news that he apparently drowned and died in Florida.
He was a high school football coach in his second season. And, Ryan's a big guy, 6'6". He said he was on a beach. I'm eager to see the details. He was a rookie in 2012 with the Patriots. Then he's on a practice squad. He played with the Patriots, Texans, and the Ravens. And when he was with the Texans, his record was 2-4 as a starter. But he's only 35 years old. That's amazing. I'd like to think he's trying to save somebody, but you never know. I feel terrible for his family.
John, there's not a whole lot of NFL news going on right now, but they are voting on a new NFLPA executive director. Why is it a secret who the candidates are?
Geez, Paul, tell you the truth. I've paid no attention to that. Once they get their collective bargaining agreement extended for 10 years, I pay no attention to the union. DeMar Smith replaced Gene Upshaw. Upshaw was wildly popular, had a great relationship with Commissioner Paul Tagliabue. And those were some big shoes for DeMar Smith to fill. I think overall he's done a good job, but he wants to retire. And there's a lot of people who want that position, including some former players. And while every team has a representative to the union, there's an executive committee that will make that decision, and I have no idea who the candidates are.
John, what do you think the actual market's like for Dalvin Cook? You see a lot of headlines. I know, though, that can be the agent working, the channels to try and, have a perceived interest out there. But how much actual interest do you think there is in Dalvin Cook?
Well, you're right about that, Craig, about the agents. And the agents have to leak stories to make it look like teams are interested. And there are teams interested in him, but it's got to be at their price. There's talk the Dolphins have made him an offer. The Jets are interested. The Broncos, if he's smart, he's going to go to a team like the Dolphins or the Jets. Jets got Breece Hall coming off major knee surgery, but they've got 2 running backs. Dolphins are very talented, have a great passing game as long as Tua Tagovailoa is healthy, and he's always hurt. every season he's been hurt. And he's been working with judo experts about how to help him fall and to help him avoid concussions. So I think Dalvin Cook should go there because they have great passing game and they have a good running game. But if I'm him, I'm going to Miami. He's from South Florida. He played at Florida State. So he's not going to get a long-term contract. Running backs don't. But whoever gets him should be able to get a productive player who can run and catch and can have breakaway runs too for at least a couple of years.
So, John, I mean, there are a lot of running backs that are do extensions based on other positions in the NFL and what they would. Josh Jacobs and Saquon Barkley are all saying that they want one. Austin Eckler, tried to throw his weight around the draft, and it didn't work out for him. Will it work out for Barkley or Jacobs, or is this just the barking that they have to do to the inevitable sign the franchise tender and hope for the best?
Paul, they can get extensions. That's not a problem. Problem, they're not getting extension offers for the kind of money they're hoping to get because the running back position in general doesn't have a lot of stability. And I'm not really sure why, because every team's got two. Used to, you'd see these guys touch the ball 400 times a season. That was almost a kiss of death. But still, you've seen LaDainian Tomlinson play for years. But for whatever reason today, when they start to make money, they get rid of them because you can get younger, cheaper, who can be productive. And today, if you're one-dimensional and you're not a good receiver or you struggle against the blitz, you're not long for the running back world. And I think some guys just have to come to reality. I'm only going to get $10 million a year and quit whining about it. Take it. Try to get a lot of incentives based on your performance and the team's performance and maybe cash in on a couple of more million.
Paul, do you have anything else NFL-wise?
No.
John, what's the alarm level right now surrounding the Astros and, in particular, Rafael Montero?
I wrote a column today that's on our website, sportsradio610.com, where there's no paywall, about the next time Dusty Baker picks up the phone in the dugout and calls the bullpen to get Montero up, hang up, slam down the phone. That guy has been awful last year. He was outstanding during the season. He was magnificent in the playoffs, signed a $34 million contract, hadn't done squat. And Dusty says he's sticking with him. Well, why? Nobody else would call him at this point. They've got pitchers, relief pitchers, who are not pitching as well as last season. They had the best bullpen in baseball last season. It looked like at one point they would too, but they've been too inconsistent. Their best relievers, Hector Neris, with a 1.13 ERA. They have three good starters. Four-starter G.P. France is a 28-year-old rookie, and he's pitching better than anyone anticipated. And they're just keeping their fingers crossed that Jose Urquidy, who won 12 games in regular season and then didn't get to pitch in the playoffs because they were too deep, that he can come back. But they got hitters too. And Jose Abreu, their first baseman, their big free agent signing, he has been a huge disappointment. And all their diehard fans, their excuse-making fans, they'll say, hey, it's just June. The Astros will come back. They don't have the talent. They don't have the healthy talent that they had last year. They've got 4 coming up with the Rangers in Arlington. Then they'll have another series against them. They got 10 left. They can't afford to lose 3 out of 4 to the Rangers. And it seems like every time the Rangers hit a little slump, the Astros can't take advantage of it.
Yeah, the Rangers had a bump the last couple of nights. They lost. In fact, Detroit beat them up pretty good last night, but it's still a 5-game lead. And the Angels, perhaps, are the team to watch in the West with what they're doing with Ohtani having such an incredibly monstrous year. All right, John, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
He didn't say sick 'em. Oh, all right, sick 'em from John McLean. All right, just real quick story, then we come back with Paul's top 5. So remember when we asked Dave Aranda, and I remember sitting down with him and asking about the transfer portal, and they were not very active in the transfer portal. Yes, they've gotten Siaka Ika, and they've had others. But the wide receiver position entering 2022, the question was, why would they not have gone out and found some players in the portal? And do you guys remember what he said to me? He wanted to give those who were on the roster a chance to prove themselves and believe in what basically is the culture of the team, that they wanted to rely on them and give them more of a chance than bringing in somebody new, even if somebody new might have been better. It didn't work very well because we saw what happened with the offense. Shaka Smart at Marquette. The culture of improvement instead of transfers. Same thing. That doesn't mean we wouldn't take a guy or never would, but with our emphasis on how we want to be culturally, the transactional nature of taking transfers also probably makes it less appealing for transfers who look at us or us looking at them. That he wants to rely instead on who he has, a year coming back of experience or not, or maybe somebody gets better or coach him better rather than bring in transfers.
Yeah, but they were in on a couple of guys too and didn't get them. So it's not like he didn't go after transfers at all.
Smart is one of just 2 high major coaches who was not brought in as a transfer in the first 2 cycles of the new immediate eligibility world, with Tom Izzo the other.
I mean, but he still put his toe in the water and hasn't done it. He probably hasn't been as aggressive, but I do think that will change for him, especially, what
changes when you need something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that has a lot to do with it. But it reminded me of the Aranda comment that he made about the wide receivers, relying on who he had on the roster, hoping that they would get better, more mature, physically better, and it didn't work.
Well, that was a mistake, and I'm sure he would chalk that up and acknowledge that it was a mistake in hindsight.
Yeah.
But at the same time, how many transfers have they brought in this offseason?
A chunk.
Like 12 guys?
A chunk.
So much for that, huh?
Yep.
I mean, Keytron Jackson was really the only receiver, and they brought in other guys prior to that. They might not have been high-profile guys like that receiver, but, their group last year was kind of a combination of things, and probably could have used a couple, transfer guys. Maybe it wouldn't have mattered in the long run, given the quarterback play and just the offense overall in terms of the passing game. It might not have made a difference, but certainly it didn't help improve the morale or the feel around the team. If anything, they could have used an influx of some guys that maybe would have improved it based on the way it felt by the end of the year. So, sometimes you think certain ways and – you're open-minded enough to change those ways if you realize that you were wrong. And, maybe it's better to do it differently the next time around. They didn't go out and grab like 5 guys in the portal, just Keytron Jackson. But, I think, that's just a mistake and you learn from it. So, you got to do that sometimes.
All right, when we come back, it's been 3 months, but Paul Catalina and Top 5 is next.
The future's bright. The time is now.
College is what you make it. It's a late-night pizza run and all-nighters coding a new project. It's having big dreams and making them a reality. It's a professor who knows your name and your story. It's preparation for your future, your calling, your life. And at Baylor, it's even more. Baylor, where lights shine bright.
Joined by Samantha Duvall, TexasBeefHouse.com, Director of Marketing. 4th of July, it's coming up. We've been through Father's Day, Memorial Day before that, and now you have 4th of July. What are a couple of specials, or maybe when people call, they could focus on the 4th of July weekend?
So we just got a new shipment of inventory in, so we are stocked back up on our brisket. We're stocked back up on our ribeyes. Of course, we've got hamburger patties, jalapeno and cheese patties. Those are one of our biggest sellers. Also put together what we call the grilling package, and it's a package that gives you sirloin, filet, hamburger package, regular patties, jalapeno and cheese patties, New York strip, and some of our Wagyu garlic links. They're fully cooked. You just throw them on the grill or put them in the oven.
Where is the best beef in Texas? Your house. When you order from Texas Beef House, unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu from our pasture to your plate. TexasBeefHouse.com.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit Marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, raise your cholesterol, and cause weight gain. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results. So if you're tired of being tired, call or go online at pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $165 a month, including lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, and follow-up visits, compared to $300 or more a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to drive 90 miles one way or the other and fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T has board-certified physician consultations and will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone. Contact Petty Clinic Low T for increased energy, improvement in sexual desire and performance, mood, concentration, even a decrease in body and belly fat. Just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway, pettycliniclowt.com.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Top 5 the best current dynasties. I was going to do top 5 topics I missed talking about while I was gone, but I didn't want it to be dated immediately once we put it on YouTube. So I wanted to especially throw out some love to one of the schools on the list who just got on here, not just because of what they did last night, but still.
LSU's one of them.
Yeah, LSU's one of them.
You just gave it
I'll
away.
say that. But
all right.
It would have devolved into me just ripping Bill Hancock for the whole segment. So I didn't want to do that either. But number 5, Alabama football. Look, they haven't won a title in a couple years, but they're still in there. And if the worst thing you can say about an Alabama football season is they had 2 losses on the last possession of the game.
On the road, right?
On the road. Look, they didn't look like completely themselves last year, but they found a way, except against LSU and Tennessee. And that found them outside of the playoff picture. If they have that same season 1 year from now, they'll be in the playoff, and everybody will be sad about it because they'll have an opportunity to win the national championship again. So they're still, one of the best going, only at 5th on this list just because it's been a couple years since they've actually physically gotten to hoist a trophy.
Yeah, I mean, there's no end in sight right now for them, but there are a lot more threats than there have ever been before, including within their own conference, whether that be LSU, winning the West, or Georgia winning the whole dadgum thing, and now here comes Texas and OU, and I know that's not going to make Bama fans flinch, but, I mean, it is another new era that's about to start up, and, shoot, we don't have any idea if Hugh Freeze gets Auburn rolling again or Billy Napier figures it out at Florida or something. Like, we don't know the next team, Shane Beamer out in Columbia, who could, cause some chaos as well. But, yeah, I mean, they're still at the tippity top, but Georgia's had something to say about that here recently.
Yeah. Now, look, the next four on this list are kind of obvious, but they have been doing it for a little bit now, depending on your stretch. But number 4, UConn men's basketball. Look, we can talk about UConn's women's basketball. Gino Auriemma is fantastic. But the men's basketball team in the last 20 years has won 4 titles with 3 different head coaches. And they do get left out of the dynasty conversation quite a bit. And this is not just dynasty of your immediate run. This is, to me, a team that can go through change and then rebound and be what everybody expects them to be again. And UConn's men's basketball now winning for the 4th time with a 3rd different head coach completely fits that bill. And now that they've won in the NIL and transfer portal era, the floodgates are going to be open for them to do it again probably pretty soon.
You know, it's hard to imagine. UConn women's basketball has now not won a title since 2016 when they were on that incredible streak. They haven't played but one of the other years have they been in the finals, and that was 2 years ago losing to South Carolina. It is really kind of dried up for them.
Well, and look, that's good news for women's basketball. That's good news for women's basketball.
Yeah,
it really is,
yeah.
because it means that you're going to have a different thing when you tune in every time. But UConn men's basketball, and I think Danny Hurley has them. Obviously, they're the defending national champions, but I think he'll have them on a crazy ascendancy here coming up.
Yeah, obviously the defending champs, and as you said, they've done it kind of in different eras, so to speak. But for a long time now, getting a little bit of that Big 12 rumor mill buzz going. I don't know how realistic any of that actually is. I, understand the appeal, and at the same time, I understand the wanting to run away from that idea as fast as freaking possible, especially if you're UConn and you just won a men's basketball national championship. It's the same concept of why would Oregon and Washington leave a 10-team league when there's an expanded playoff to make it harder to get in the playoff when they'd basically have a layup every couple of years? And kind of with UConn, I know it's different because of the format and all of that, but they just won the title. You don't need to go improve the basketball side of things. No. That's not where you're lacking, clearly. So, that's something that, I guess boils down to money and exposure and everything. But yeah, they've been at it a long time. They've been super consistent and have thrived in, whether you're looking at NBA players or championships, whatever, and multiple coaches makes it very impressive.
Number 3, LSU baseball. It only takes every couple of years before an LSU team seems to cycle their way through into running through the College World Series. And this series, the 3-game series they played against the Gators was really intriguing in that they had, a nail biter in game 1 and then a Florida boat race in game 2, and then LSU didn't take that well and returned the favor in game 3 and won the title. But LSU's now gone through a couple of coaches here after the Skip Bertrand retired. So they've gone through it, and here they are back on top again. And that's just what the Tigers do is win the College World Series. And this is the team on this list that I am the most, as a fan, insanely jealous of, because I very much enjoy college baseball, and my team is the one that's always knocking at the door and can't get in.
They bypassed Texas, who we know has been incredibly successful in Omaha. They now have the 2nd most national titles with 7, only behind USC. And USC, it's been a while when they had unbelievable names coming through that system.
How long to say last?
For USC?
It was 98. That's when they last won a championship.
Okay. It's been 24 years, 25 years, yeah.
So they've sat there and still have some room to sit a little while longer without adding to that, but not much longer. But if LSU is going to do it at every 10-year type of a clip, because that was, it's been a while since that last one before this one. But, they've been rolling, man, in every sport. It's been super impressive. And, the SEC's really, get tired of saying it because it's like ad nauseum. But they've really, wrapped their hands around baseball here over these last several years in terms of being, the team, having a team on top of the mountain at the very end. So LSU just continues that on, and to have 2nd most all-time national championships is a very cool feat to be able to brag about, and they do it in different kinds of ways. And I don't know, they are a pretty good team, but as people are calling them the Cinderella and the underdog and stuff.
LSU?
Yeah, I saw that. I know.
Yeah,
I know. Did anybody else see that, by the way? Like, there's like an underdog element to them.
They
and
did.
That was kind of confusing. Maybe it's just the style in which they play is what was being referenced there. But yeah, they're no underdogs. They're on top of the baseball mountain.
Yeah,
you have two top five.
Like everybody now, no one believed in us.
Right.
They
yeah.
were ranked number
the Warriors
one.
are like, no one believes that Steph can lead a team. Yeah. Okay. Like whatever. Yeah.
Two top 5 picks and it just doesn't. Baseball draft is so
and the greatest
hard to
pitcher in
pick.
college baseball history. Yeah.
Absolutely. And Dylan Cruz is awesome, by the way. Can't wait to see what he does as a pro. Number 2, Oklahoma softball, who just lost one of their stud players to transferring to Nebraska, which was kind of a shock.
Jordy Ball,
yeah, she wants to go play closer to home, but I don't know who's going to. I mean, even losing a player of that caliber, I don't think is really going to slow them down that much.
No, they'll be fine. I saw where a catcher entered the transfer portal. That means you've kind of had this winning, and now maybe there's reasons you want to leave. They will plug easily, copy and paste. You don't replace Ball just like that. They will copy and paste, and they will not miss a beat.
I mean, it's not all that different from Georgia losing like a 5-star quarterback because he's not got a chance to go play.
Yeah.
I think there's some element of that too, of just like, where's the playing time at for some people when you're as good as they are? There's just not a lot of, a lot of chances maybe for everybody involved. But yeah, they've won 3 straight. They've won 5 since 2016. Had another one in 2013. And, prior to that, it was really mostly like a Pac-12 schools or like your occasional, I guess, like a Michigan or somebody would pop. But like the Pac-12 ruled the softball roost for a long time.
Yep, they
and
did.
Oklahoma's upended that. And they had interjected themselves a little bit. They, won titles throughout the last couple of decades. But this run here recently, where they've just built it into consecutive titles and really no end in sight is super impressive. The one loss they avenged. And still, I don't like getting, trophies for participating or anything. Like Baylor softball, like we beat Oklahoma. And it's like, yeah, but they won every other game. They won the national title. So it's like, what does it really matter? But it's a cool trivia note for you. Patty Gasso is a legend, and they should be doing. I expect they'll be doing the same thing in the SEC. I mean, that's the thing is like there's gonna be so many swimming and diving titles and softball titles and those kinds of things that weren't as maybe regular, that now they're going to benefit from OU and Texas in a lot of those different ways, not to mention the bigger sports from time to time too.
Yeah, absolutely. And number 1, Georgia football, back-to-back college football titles is a really hard thing to do.
Is that the only reason they're ahead of Oklahoma softball?
Yeah. They are. It's really, really hard to do, and they are. They
were more dominant in some ways than OU softball,
Yeah,
depending on what game we're talking about.
Yeah, just absolutely rolling through. There's no reason to see them stopping this year, considering that. I don't think it's really any fault of their own. I mean, things happen. One of their big non-conference game got taken off by the conference because that they're coming in a year, so they're not playing Oklahoma, so they had to replace that. So here Georgia is, and they're spending more money in recruiting. They're doing all these things. Kirby Smart is considerably younger than Nick Saban, so conceivably can maybe work at a faster pace, but they don't show any signs of stopping at Georgia. Something crazy weird is going to happen for the Bulldogs to be out of this conversation, to me, in the next decade.
Yeah, no one, no matter who they are, what they have coming back, they lose Stetson Bennett. You'd think, okay, they maybe even a more talent. No one has won 3 in a row.
No.
Not the great Miami teams, the USC teams, the Oklahoma teams, not the Nebraska dynasties in the 90s or Florida State. None of them. Alabama, they have never won 3 in a row, and that is amazing.
Florida State played in 3 in a row and lost 2 of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think that's going to get any easier with an expanded playoff.
No.
So this might be the one pocket of time here this year where you could see that actually happen, because beyond that, I mean, I just think the grind of the playoff, I don't care how well set. Georgia will be better set up than anybody, save for Alabama or maybe whoever at any given moment. But still, to go play the SEC schedule, although you look at theirs and it's like not that bad actually. Kind of like we overhype that sometimes.
They landed on the good part of the wheel.
Yeah,
this year,
like
for sure.
I mean, there's definitely good parts of the wheel, but it's treated as though it's like everything's barbed wire everywhere you look. But anyways, they're well set up, but to go win multiple playoff games and do that on a yearly basis, year after year after year, is going to be really difficult for anybody.
Sure it is.
So I mean, this is a window for them to maybe be the first to do that, and I don't think it would come as a surprise. I mean, if they're not a playoff team next year, then something went really, really wrong, given their schedule and their talent level. But yeah, they're a juggernaut, and you're like, who's ever going to dethrone Bama? Bama's still right there, but Georgia, they're the kings right now for sure.
You wonder, had there been a playoff of even 4 teams back the last 45 or 50 years, how many that had a chance to win 3 in a row would have won 3 in a row? It might have made it more difficult. Who knows? It might have made it easier. All right, thank you very much. Oh, my goodness, Jack McKenzie and Garrett Ross and Graham Bronstein and Levi Caraway and Emery Winter, everybody that you don't get to see that we get to see that helps us do what we do and makes us look better, sound better, and then they blow it out all throughout different outlets to make sure you get to watch it. For our sponsors, we appreciate them. Craig Smoak, thank you very much. Paul Catalina, welcome back. And congratulations on the wedding. I'm David Smoak. Thank you, the chat room, the text line, and everybody else in between for being a part of what we do every day. 365 Sports, and good night.